gentlemen, I am officially running for President of the United States.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to everyone. I'm joined tonight by Matt Moore. What's up, Matt?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Not too bad, man. And Dog Mama will be here just momentarily. But yeah, we're going to continue with the trial. We're going to start off with the fireworks in court. Apparently, Wish.com Wolverine gets chewed out by the judge and throws a hissy fit and runs off. So,
oh yeah, okay,
that should be fun.
You didn't see this yet, or
No. So that's where we ended last week. So, that should be enjoyable. But yeah. So let's say hello to everybody and we'll get into it. So, Dog Mama, hello. Alex, Deez.
Hey, Deez.
You're not working? What the hell? Get back to work. And Shenny, hello.
Hey, Shenny.
That's the starter crew. I was on time, so we'll take probably another 45 minutes for people to get in here. So, see, Linda. Hello.
Linda.
But yeah, so we're gonna start off today with God, like he just, I don't know if it's round face or he just needs a new barber or something. Something's going on with that thing that I don't like. But yeah, we're gonna get started with him getting scolded and running off like a little crybaby bitch. So that's always fun.
this is how nice this judge was. You can
AP and Ghost Creek.
He was just a nice guy. The judge was just a nice guy. I don't know how else to describe him.
He seemed like a really fair judge. So we have some of them are so like Dylan. He's doing a trial right now. Great trial if you're into trials. Kiriega Killers or whatever. Great trial, and the judge in that is such a cuck. He's so worried about getting overturned and having a mistrial that he's been horrible, just absolutely horrible.
Right.
So
this judge was retired, so I don't think he was worried about anything. He wasn't worried about getting reelected or reappointed. I'll tell you that. He did this as a favor to come out of retirement and do this. So
and it shows because he plays it straight right down the way. Matt, here's a link to a quick explanation of Nazara. Take it with a huge grain of salt. Snopes has, quote, debunked it, so you know it's true.
Okay.
I added that part. But Digger's a fellow conspiracist too, so if she has good information, that's probably a good place to find some stuff. So, but yeah, so let's get started and watch him get scolded.
Which I believe is going to happen tomorrow. So remember the court's admonition. As always, enjoy yourself. Take it easy. Don't think about the case. Get a good night's rest.
So this is him dismissing the jury, and then we get into them having a discussion.
This is this discussion about the Rule 29. This is really good.
Okay.
I think this is the part I'm thinking of. I'm not sure, but
What's up, Jacob Castro?
Hey, Jacob. Dazer.
The presence of the jury, all parties, including the defendant, are present. Stand up or sit down, whatever you'd like to do. It's up to you. I've been keeping some notes on exhibits. I'm not going to say I'm totally complete here, but I'm sure you probably have as well. How would you like to proceed? You want to just go through each exhibit as the numbers come up and letters come up and address whether you want to admit them? I could go through the numbers and the letters as I have them, and hopefully they correspond with yours, if you'd like me to do that.
Yeah, and then honestly, I mean, I think that before I can formally say one way or the other on some of these, I might need to look at the exhibits again, because we've had a lot of things where,
That's fair.
mark for identification, or maybe not put the whole thing in, like, there's a lot of that I think we need.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, Mark. So I'm with you on that one. I mean, we'll do whatever we need to do to go through these, and I do appreciate it'll take some time, so.
Your Honor, I'd like to, I think the fact that we move forward, I know where the court's, I would like to make the Rule 29.
All right.
Yep, there's a Rule 29.
I know you want to get it on the record, so
Oh,
rather than have to keep you leashed up, go ahead.
Oh, geez.
Pause and not respond to a least shut comment.
Oh, you've been anxious to get this on the
Well,
record.
because
That's my
Judge,
comment.
it's actually not, this isn't about me just preserving the record. I mean, I understand Rule 29, viewing that evidence in the light most favorable to the state. I think even there, it's still, we're looking at the elements of the offense, and one of the elements of the offense is intent. I just think the record is completely replete with that.
I'm sorry, on what?
On the issue of mens rea, of intent. I just don't, I mean, we have text messages that, by the testimony of the witnesses, never even say, I hate you, I want you dead. The worst is, if you want to divorce me, divorce me. And that's in December of 2019. I mean, we have testimony, certainly testimony as to what Matheau Moore said. There's no confession. We have testimony which is corroborated by cell phone data that Emily was last seen on May 25th leaving for a walk. But I don't, even all the facts of the case, Your Honor, it's still looking at a light most favorable to the state. Where is the mens rea? And with respect to motive, I understand that they don't have to prove motive. I also understand that the absence of motive, how it can be used by a jury. So that's a separate argument. Where is the intent to kill? Where? And if they are going to stand up and say, Your Honor, the intent to kill is based on Dr. Smock's this finding
Nope.
that this is a manual strangulation, there is zero evidence connecting any manual strangulation to that. Zero. On its best day, there's zero. Forensics, eyewitnesses, cell, text messages, there's nothing. So I don't make the Rule 29 because I want to preserve my client's record for appeal. I in fact think we should never get to appeal because of the lack of the strength of the evidence in this case. But I really, the intent, that if you still have to look at each and every element out of Rule 29. Where is the intent to kill? And the felonious assent is cause or attempt to cause serious physical harm, as this court well knows, and I just say it to say it. Where is the cause or intent to cause? Where is it? Where if, let's just say that there's sufficient evidence of a manual strangulation based on Dr. Smock testimony alone. Oh, okay. Where is any evidence connecting this man to a manual strangulation? Literally saw videos of him. There's nothing on there. No eyewitness, no forensics, no trace, nothing. So I usually actually make my Rule 29 more long and complicated, but I think with respect to the mens rea, there's nothing there. And in the absence of anything, it doesn't even get over the hurdle of when viewing the evidence in a light most favorable to the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. As the court is aware, this is charged as a murder case. It's not charged as an aggravated murder case with prior calculation and design, which is what defense counsel is requesting basically in an argument regarding intent. But Your Honor, you have to go through and think about what every single witness told you. But you have to take what they told you in the context and the inconsistencies with what the defendant told officers in his interviews, and he is the last person to see Emily alive.
Not true.
And that
Not
should
true.
weigh heavily.
Proven.
And we know that because of his statements. And when you talk about intent, Your
What
Honor, the law and even the jury instructions say.
You don't also have evidence that Mr. Kramer saw it?
Yes, but by the defendant's own statements, Your Honor, it says that they
Kramer.
were in bed by some time.
Yeah.
So,
I think they were in bed, and then the next day, the following day, Mr. Kramer saw it.
but he also retracted that on the stand.
I appreciate that as well.
So when you're looking at the timeline and you're looking at the inconsistencies, and there are, you have to also look at Dr.
Fuck you,
Smock's
girl.
testimony regarding this being
Look at
a
her.
staged scene, Your Honor. That is the state's argument, that is what occurred.
I'll tell you what, I think it's, for purposes of the motion, you have satisfied your burden for the purposes of homicide. What I'm really looking for is
Give him that.
the evidence that you are relying upon to say this individual is the one who committed that homicide.
And
So
all-
you please focus on that. I mean, I'm not telling you what to say, but I don't need you to argue the homicide because I'm with you on that one. It's for the purposes of this motion.
And so focusing on ID, that element, Your Honor.
Well, the men's actus mens Rhea, the ID?
Here's her chance. Here it is. The judge says, okay, it was
Your Honor,
murder.
You have to
Tell me
recall
why.
the text message
It
the
was
defendant
him.
sent his friend. His marriage is over. That provides motive sent 2 weeks before, or is it 2 weeks? May 5th? May 7th. So not even 2 weeks before his marriage. He tells his friend in a secret app, my marriage is over. That is his motive for killing his wife, Your Honor.
Okay, so
Really?
we got motive.
All right.
Wow,
That
that's
goes to his intent.
Yeah.
The marriage is over. Now, when you're talking about the purposeful intent, or the defendant and his intent to kill, you have to go from that date of the text message and then move forward. All right. They go out for her birthday. They come back, and you have to remember the defendant's own statements, Your Honor. Immediately afterwards, he calls and says to her sister, the day, May 25th in the evening, she's gone. He tells law enforcement, I loved her. He is using past tense. He is telling her sister that she is gone.
When was that?
May 25th.
Okay.
She's gone. May 27th, I loved her. No one else, Your Honor, would have the incentive or the motive to stage
How would we know?
a suicide.
How
A
would we know if
suicide,
we
by the
didn't
way, he
investigate
describes
the
to
video?
law enforcement while
Right.
being
You
interviewed.
didn't investigate
She would
shit.
go down somewhere.
Right.
That's exactly where she was. He's the only person who knew that because he did it.
I'm sorry, he's the only person who knew what now?
That where her body is at because he put it there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what did he say?
What the fuck?
He said,
Listen to the
well,
judge. He's breaking her balls.
If she was suicidal, she would go down into the woods. Would go down somewhere.
And who's that said, supposed to?
Law enforcement on May 27th.
Then why did it take him?
So he told law enforcement she would go down to the woods where she was ultimately found.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he put her there.
What?
She doesn't even fucking believe that.
No.
What?
Your Honor, his other actions immediately when she goes missing and afterwards indicate that he knows she's not coming home. And don't forget the manipulation of the crime scene, or the house, I should say, the day she went missing. He is moving courts while law enforcement is there. Magically, a flashlight arrives. And of course, Your Honor, he's manipulating and controlling what law enforcement does from the very first interaction. He doesn't even call 911, all right? So they arrive to the
I
scene.
thought he called 911.
Well, strike that, you're correct, Your Honor. He calls 911 after
Holy
Emily
shit.
Emily's friend
Laughable.
tells him to do so on the evening of May 25th. Law enforcement
Wait,
arrives to the scene. He's
wait,
immediately
listen.
controlling what they do. Well, I've done this and I've done that. He starts to give a timeline that is not supported by the forensics from the phones. We went into the bedroom. We fell asleep. 5 seconds later on the body cam, we see the bed is made. And then he continues to talk about what happens that evening
What?
when they get home. You know, he gets up, he
What
goes to
the
pee, he
fuck?
goes to the other room,
The
and then
bed.
he comes
The
back.
bed
And-
was made.
In his other statements, he starts to change his story. It's those consistencies, those material inconsistencies, I should say, that call into question not only what he's telling law enforcement, but it circumstantially shows that not only did he have the intent to kill, he had the opportunity because they came home. There is a 4-hour block on his phone where nothing happens.
Have you been
Whoa.
asleep?
And then we know he is up for hours after.
Hang on, I'm gonna pause it for just a second. Ducarino, I heard that if we were saying that it was a murder, so we'll concede that point. How are you saying
Right.
that tied to it? But maybe I'm mistaken with that. I don't know.
The judge has conceded with evidence in favor and most favorable to the state, which means you give them the bump that it
Mhm.
could have been murder. Not that it was, but we'll let the jury decide whether it was a murder or not. Now,
Right.
explain what evidence you had that he did it. Well, he's the last
Yeah.
person to see her alive. False, lie, proved wrong. He had an opportunity because he wasn't on his phone. What? And they say this 4-hour period. That's not when they say I did it. They can't use that because Emily was seen leaving at 8 to go forage, apparently at night to go forage, which wasn't true. But okay, say she did. She would have been back within an hour. How am I supposed to
Yeah.
do this thing at 1 o'clock when I get up at 1 It doesn't fit their timeline. Their timeline, it has to happen when I wasn't using my phone for 40 minutes the evening of the 24th. That's their timeline. She's just trying to get out. I don't know. I can see it as plain as day what she's doing. She's literally grasping at straws. Wait until I was staging the scene. What is there evidence that I was staging the scene? That I moved a cooler. That I moved a cooler
and a cord.
Wait until you hear what the judge says. Can't you tell just by what the judge is asking your questions? I mean, he's like, what are you talking? Where is your case? This is your case, folks. This is the state's case against me. She's telling you it. And it's not over. Go ahead, keep playing it because it's fucking a joke.
It's absolute bullshit. Cool Frog, what's up, buddy? I did want to ask one question. Was there ever discussion or serious consideration to you testifying yourself?
Never. They never even asked me.
No? Okay.
They didn't even ask me. I didn't, and I was going to until and I was gonna right up until the judge asked me, and then I said no.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain because I knew everybody said don't testify, bro. Don't. But my lawyers didn't say that, and I'm like, I'm gonna get up there, man. I'm getting up there because you can tell by the way I am that I'm not. I'm telling the truth. And then right at the last second, I said, no, that's okay. I chickened out. It's in my book. I don't know if you read it. It's like it's a moment for me because it's like I'm getting up there. Why wouldn't I testify, right? Right at the last second, I was like, no, that's okay.
And I get it. And I mean, you really didn't need to. Like we've seen other ones like the Rittenhouse case. Rittenhouse had to testify. There was no two ways about that. He had to because of the district, because of the nature of it, he had to testify. Yours, I think, testifying would have been a bad idea, but
probably
just my personal.
Like I've told you guys before, I was completely kept out of the strategy of my defense for whatever reason. Probably because I talk a lot. You know what I mean? Maybe I would have been talking, but they kept it away from me. And when they came down to whether I was going to testify or not, my primary attorney said one time, you know, there's an honesty about you. We might have you testify. Then they didn't say it. So I thought, oh, great, cool. They're going to use me to test. And then like maybe a month before my trial, my primary attorney said, you're not going to testify. Don't even think about it. And that's the last I heard of it. That's the last. And Diane never once mentioned anything like that to me. Diane didn't mention anything to me. For a reason. That's her process, right? Whatever. I
mean, she won. So, you know. There's some credence to that, but yeah, I get it. You want to be in the loop.
If you ever get her as an attorney and your life's on the line, just let her do what she's doing, man. Don't worry about it. Just even if you're like guilty, you know what I mean. Just let her do her thing.
Let her work. Yeah.
Don't especially if you're innocent. Just believe me, she's gonna take care of you. She's got your back 100%.
Good deal. All right, we'll continue.
After that, and there was no movement. Nothing on Emily's phone after 9-something. Your Honor, this is a circumstantial case.
I'm with you on that one.
All right, but the court has heard testimony from.
I'm with you on that one.
20-some witnesses who have provided the opportunity, who have provided the intent their marriage is over, and even the defendant himself providing statements. How he controls the scene, manipulates the house.
How does he control?
Look at Grubbs.
Explain that a little bit more for me.
Because when law enforcement arrives, he starts to tell them, you know, everything that he's done. And so by controlling and telling them, well, I've looked in the attic, you know, we don't even look here. I've looked here. And then Hollis goes out to talk to another officer. And then when Hollis comes back to the garage, the scene has changed.
But when you say scene, you're referring to the home.
The garage, yes. Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
He's moving the cord. He moves the cooler. There's magically a flashlight there now.
What is the significance of that?
He doesn't even know.
I mean, direct evidence is the cord.
What's the significance of the cord?
Circumstantial conclusion of that, other than the fact that it was moved.
Well, immediately he lies to law enforcement. Whoops, excuse me, need a little bit more water. Get my hand.
Okay.
He immediately lies to law enforcement. He's like, I didn't touch it.
Is that lie significant?
Yes.
Other than the fact that it was just a lie that he moved it.
How's that
looking
lying?
for a cord, Your Honor. There is a USB cord wound around his wife's neck. And then there's
a orange
cord that he's manipulating and lying to law enforcement about moving.
They're lying right there.
He is setting up a staged suicide from the moment law enforcement gets there. I don't know. I didn't touch it. We know he touched it. Maybe she did.
They're talking about
It's all of
I was
those
talking about
simple
the cord.
actions of staging suicide from the moment law
I'm
enforcement
guessing,
gets
how
there.
does the orange cord have to do with this? And I say this honestly, how does that connect to the stage suicide?
No, Your Honor, I think it's one-on-one here. I just want to say something, if I may, about the staging of suicide.
Well, I'll tell you, you get an opportunity to respond. I'll give you an opportunity to respond. Let me finish the statement.
Just so with one attorney right now.
Your Honor,
You take all the time you need. Take the time you need.
If you want if the cord situation explained to you, I can explain it to you if you want.
Okay.
It's up to you if you want me to.
That's yeah, why not? Because there's some new people here, so let's go for it.
They had Hollis is the original officer that showed up when I called her in. He showed up with a body cam, and he walks through the our garage, and initially when he first gets there, and there's a cooler. It's on a bench at the back of the garage. It's red with a white top. It's just a regular cooler, and there is a orange extension cord on top of it, a big long kind of a heavy duty, the kind you do yard work with on top of it.
Sure.
I don't know how much time it goes by, but they go through it the garage again, and his body camera picks up the cooler had been moved over about a foot, and there was a flashlight now kind of positioned in there. They used that as evidence of me taking the cord off off its hook and putting it there in an attempt to make it look like that was Emily looking for something to hang herself with, but I did it. I was staging the scene. If you go and you look, as she said, she just told you he's taking, she motions me taking it down and putting it on there. That the extension cord was always on the cooler. The cooler got moved over by me, apparently. I don't remember doing it, but I was looking to try to find out what was going on. I was going through my entire condo, trying to find clues where my wife was. Did I move the cooler over? Sure, I guess I did. Who else would do something like that? I don't remember doing it, but they were saying that I did it to stage the scene, and it wasn't the cooler. It was they insinuated that I took the cord down and put it there. The cord was always on there, and then when they say I make a statement, well, I didn't move anything over here. What I meant is that if I even said that, but I meant that I didn't put the cord there. I didn't say anything about the cooler or the flashlight or any of that. I was looking for.
Oh no.
He'll be back. He loses it.
Yeah.
His service sometimes on his phone.
Yeah.
It heats up a little bit, but he'll be back. But yeah, I guarantee they didn't tell him not to touch anything or move anything.
No.
I just know that didn't happen. So
No.
the fact that something was slightly moved a few inches seems like some bullshit to me.
Absolutely.
And to hear this woman talk about, like, I don't know who the hell she's trying to convince. Maybe she's trying to convince herself.
I think it's herself.
This is a joke. This is an absolute fucking joke. Like,
Yeah.
they haven't said anything that makes any coherent sense, and you know the judge isn't buying it. I mean,
No, I mean, he was
assume-
even like,
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you had the neighbor who saw her, kind of, yeah.
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 I mean, it's complete bullshit. Oh, he's back.
I switched phones. I don't know what it is,
Oh.
but my phones just, they cut off. I'm sorry, dude. I'm on a
No,
different
you're
phone.
fine.
Are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear
You're
you.
in and out.
Can you hear me?
Man,
We can hear you fine.
you're in and out, man. You're in and out.
Oh, okay. We can hear you fine. So if you can hear us, we can hear you.
Well, I hope you got most of my story. The cord, and as you can see, the judge really doesn't understand what they're talking about either. But what
No.
they're trying to make a point that I'm staging the scene. That's evidence of me staging the scene.
And they never told you not to touch anything, correct? That was my question. They never, the
I'm not-
law enforcement never
I'm
said,
not
don't
hearing
move
you.
anything,
Go ahead,
don't
just
touch
explain.
anything. Okay. Right.
Your Honor, if he's going to stage a suicide, he needs a cord. It is significant that he moves a cord that he could have used to stage a suicide.
Your position is he used a USB.
What have we used?
To stage a suicide, yes.
That's already, are you saying that the stage had already
That's already in
occurred?
a.
The act had already occurred when this Officer Hollis was there?
We
Holy
have a record
shit.
between May 24th and May 25th. Your
Oh
Honor.
my
So
gosh.
When Officer Hollis arrives, yes,
Okay, so the cord was already gone. The USB cord was gone already. Okay,
yes.
so I go back. What's the significance of moving the, I mean, I appreciate the fact you say that he lied. Okay, I understand that. How does that move it forward? I mean, other than the fact that he lied to a police officer, I accept that.
Because he moved the cord. While
Okay.
hitting a cord for the stage suicide.
Oh,
see him-
you mean when
you
he
see her
was
looking
originally
sleeper?
in a position?
Yeah.
Yes,
What a fucking joke.
So between the time that
So
the
you-
law
you suggested
enforcement
the cord
officer
came from
came
that
there the
location?
first time and the second time, he moved a
He had to
cord,
move
supposedly?
the orange cord and the container of
Apparently.
of the water they got. the
Holy
previous day
shit.
In order to access the cord, is that?
we're asking, we're just saying he moved a
Oh, she's
cord
angry.
that he could have used
She's
in stage
angry.
suicide and then
Yeah.
decided to use a USB cord that is the size of fitting in your pocket. So moving a cord and choosing a different one because he needs one to stage a suicide.
Well, your position is he took a cord, I presume from the house.
Look
Your
Look
face
at
is
his
like,
face.
what the fuck is this
Yes.
bitch saying?
Yeah, I know. His
The
face
cord,
is
Detective
great.
Groth, I believe, testified, fits into phones that were found at that house.
I
His
did hear
face
that.
summarizes the entire
Okay, I'm s-
trial.
I confess, I'm just not following the orange cord situation here.
No one is.
No.
Oh, and I have another question for you too, and I apologize for breaking your train of thought here, but you said there were 4 hours on the phone and nothing happened. What were those hours?
9:45 and 1 roughly.
That would be on the 24th, approximately 9:45 to 1.
To 1:11 a.m.
Okay.
Your Honor, it's our theory that the staged suicide was occurring.
During those hours?
Yes, he's on the phone then from 1:11 until, I mean, does he ever get off the phone?
So there's no chance in him falling asleep.
How do you reconcile that? And I appreciate Mr. Kramer came into the courtroom here to withdraw a statement, but flyers were even put out saying she was last seen at 9 a.m. based upon his statement. How do you reconcile that? I mean, we're just going to ignore that he saw her at 9 and accept, your position is accept the fact he was in error, he didn't see it. I assume that to be your position, right?
Your Honor.
Your own
for
witness.
purposes of the Rule 29, assuming the facts and the light most favorable to the
And that's what I was
state,
suggesting to
okay?
you.
John Kramer came in here and said he could not say for sure he saw her that morning.
Okay.
So assuming that.
He said he
facts
thought he
most
saw her,
favorable
he
to
might have
the
seen her
rule,
the
that means he
day
saw Emily.
before.
His testimony was the May
Fucking
20th,
lying.
May
He's lying right to you.
24 at about 8, between 8 and 8:30. Because in the garage was his testimony. That's his testimony. The defendant's statements talk about them being in the home. We know the functioning on Emily's phone ceases at 7:30 or 8.
On the 24th.
I don't want to miss
Okay.
that because we can pull it up for it.
Okay, but ballpark.
Yes. So immediately after her phone stops, when she is with the defendant, there is no other activity saying that
How
she
is
was
that
using
proof?
the phone or the phone was being used ever again until he picks it up and starts using it.
So what?
And that's by his own statements. During that 4-hour period, there's nothing on his phone.
And they don't even use that 4-hour period to
Provides
say
the
that's
opportunity,
when
Your
I
Honor,
did.
to commit strangulation, which
People
the doctor
sleep at
testified
night.
to, takes
It-
152
I know.
It's
seconds.
normal.
I
Yeah.
know.
It is a quick crime. It is a purposeful crime by its very actions. What happens after that is the staged suicide.
Just it's funny now because it's but
Is
then
that
it
it?
wasn't funny, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, you fucking
It's up to
assholes.
you. I'm listening.
Yeah.
You were pausing. I wasn't sure if you were finished or not. It's
Yeah,
up to
you don't.
Just trying to
He's breaking
look
your,
you
he's
into
breaking your
buying
ball.
it.
I have
Is what
one
he's doing.
more, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I didn't feel like we were
absolutely.
gonna jump right into this.
He
Looking
told the
at this
jury,
as
jurors
protocol.
after
I
the
need
trial
more.
that this should have never made it to trial.
I'll tell you what.
The judge did?
Yes.
Why don't we do
He
this?
told
Just kinda
Connie
take
and a
break
bunch of other
for you to
jurors
get
that were
water,
back there,
for me to
this
use the
should have
restroom.
never came to trial.
And maybe you could also spend a little time, because
Wow.
I have to make my decision without waiting, but I may.
I
think about it
thought for
overnight
sure I
and
was
start up again
walking
tomorrow.
right here.
But I would like to go with
Yeah.
exhibits. So
Well,
if there's admitted exhibits, I can take a look at those.
That
and
should have
make
been
a
the
decision.
case.
So if you'd like to spend some time talking about what exhibits you can agree to, that might help that a little bit.
Sure.
Because I want to get that accomplished tonight as well, regardless of what
I'm
the
like,
court's
I'm going
decision is on
home.
those.
No, I understand that, but you're right, there's-
Yeah.
I know I've been.
That day,
there's
I
a
was
few
like,
things I'd like to say,
you gotta
but
watch,
you
but
know, are you
fuck
asking
it.
us to not make these arguments? And I can give
We
us
will do that
6
tonight.
seconds.
We'll do this tonight, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just gonna take a break for the moment,
Okay. all right.
okay? And if you can let me know, let the staff know when you're ready for me to come back in, but if you want to spend a little time talking about the exhibits, that might help too. Because once I hear all your arguments, I'm gonna digest, and I'll make a decision tonight, here on the record, I will tomorrow.
So I gotta go
But
back to
I'd like to still
jail
get the
for
exhibits
another
done so I
fucking
can take a
night.
look at
Thanks,
the
dude.
exhibits as well. So I'd like to get that addressed as well. So we'll just take a break. Let me know.
And
when
he
you're
said
ready, okay?
something about her being on a leash.
And you can continue on.
Mhm.
She didn't like that.
No, she was not happy
like
about that.
Mm-mm.
What do you? So he apologizes the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. So, no judge.
In which the homicide occurred and the
Well, that's just you for 3 minutes.
I think I wear my nice white shirt. Is it the next day or no? This isn't the next day.
Not yet.
No.
I think I wore my best shirt and my white shirt because I thought I was gonna go walk. I thought for sure I was walking home. I was gonna leave. I thought he was gonna prove the Rule 29. I was gonna walk.
Mm.
It made sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
look at what just happened. Look at the
Yeah.
argument. Diane's argument was so solid, and hers
Mhm.
was so weak with this, circumstantial. If that's even
But he moved the
circumstantial evidence.
cord.
It's just there's right. I mean, completely circumstantial. If you could
Yeah.
connect dots with circumstantial, you can get a conviction. But I mean, it's so their story is so loose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they convinced a grand jury. How did they convince a grand jury?
It's not hard to indict you as a grand jury
Yes.
at all.
Okay, we're back on the record, all parties, including defendant or president, we're outside the presence of the jury. The state's still making any comments you wish regarding the Rule 29 motion.
All right, this is still right there.
to for a much needed brain break together my thoughts. Your Honor, this whole case has started with suicide or homicide. And there certainly is enough evidence in light of the criminal Rule 29 for the jurors to determine this was a homicide.
I've already crossed that bridge.
I'm
You got
getting
that.
there, I'm getting
You good.
there, all right. So you have to start there, Judge, and everything must be viewed through the lens of this is a homicide, okay? So the evidence admitted must be viewed to support the homicide.
Somebody killed her.
So if you do that, then you have to look at the way in which the homicide occurred and the staged suicide that was set up to try and make it look like it was a suicide, not a homicide. And there's only one individual that needs to make that look like a staged suicide, Your Honor, and that's the defendant.
It's just not true.
Is no one else that needs to string Emily Noble up like that in Westerville, Ohio to make.
How
it
would they
look
know?
like suicide. And the
Right.
reasonable inference jurors can draw is that that's the defendant. If the evidence is viewed in a light most favorable to the state, Your Honor, and you look at the evidence from the lens of a homicide, then you have to look specifically at his actions that May 25th window. What is he doing in the condo? Because a homicide that has happened and he needs to stage a suicide.
But your position is, I believe, on May 25th, in the daylight hours, it's said complete, it's been accomplished, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So his actions, he tells law enforcement, well, one, he has to sleep. One moment he goes to sleep. He has to say that, Your Honor, immediately, because his wife, he's got to start building the story that his wife has disappeared, right? He has to tell law enforcement that he doesn't know where she's at because he was asleep. The next instant he says, I slept in, and by his own words, that's abnormal for me. So he has to say that so that he can say that he doesn't know
If
where
it
she's
wasn't abnormal for me, why would I say it?
at. And then Your Honor,
Right. I had
Yeah.
this. I
They literally
fucking
are
slept
making
in
a
this
case.
morning. It was abnormal.
texts Emily's
Why would I
phone
say that if
about
I always sleep in late, man? You know.
He doesn't get up. He doesn't, and then he uses Find My iPhone. He doesn't get up. He doesn't go look for her. He does nothing. If this is a homicide, Your Honor, he's taking those steps to support the suicide, that this was a suicide. He has to start creating those physical records that he doesn't know where she's at. And that's why that evidence immediately after.
And why would it matter if I knew where she was at 8, 9, 10 in the morning the next day? Why would it matter?
Right.
Most telling.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I won't say most telling. This is for sure, Your Honor. He tells.
Why would I
Officer
lie
Wallace
about
he
when I
gets
got
to the
up?
scene later
Why would
evening
that help me?
about this walk that they go on, this path that they forage.
If I started flipping out, called the police, and running all over like a crazy person every time I woke up and my wife and kids weren't here, then like holy shit.
If your wife is missing,
Yeah.
has
You're gonna wait.
disappeared,
You're just gonna wait, and you're gonna wait until it gets so weird you have to call cops.
uncharacteristic for her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're gonna wait until
To the
I,
point
like
where
I
you
did, wait
call
until
law
well into the
enforcement
afternoon.
And
There was no
you've
kids
Mhm.
done
involved. It was an adult.
nothing.
You know?
Right.
The
Right.
inference is, Your Honor, he's done nothing because he knows she's dead. If your wife is
What do you mean
missing,
I've done
are
nothing?
scouring
That's just
for
not
her.
true
You
either.
most certainly are walking that path every single minute until she's found.
Why? Why
Unless
would anybody
you know
walk up
she's
that
dead.
path every single
So,
minute?
Your Honor,
In
you
the
have to
fucking
view
morning.
Do something
that
was wrong.
behavior in the light
Right.
that this is a homicide.
Their
He
story's
doesn't
weak.
go and
It's
look for her.
fucking
even
weak. People that
immediately
believe it
after
are
saying
fucking
she's
stupid.
disappeared
They're
and
dumb.
law
Mhm.
enforcement.
You're fucking stupid.
There was a point in time when Officer Hollis was there. I don't know how significant this is, but I'll ask you the question.
This is a good
When I
one.
believe Celeste drove up, and Officer Hollis said, "Is that your wife?" And he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "No." If he had killed her, would he have said yes in the first instance?
Your Honor,
Pretty fucking.
that is a fact for the jury to determine and what weight to give to that.
He's a good
There's a
judge.
dude smart, the
Mhm.
smartest dude in the world would have
The
been able to
overall
pull that off.
picture for purposes of
Mhm.
Rule 29 and whether the evidence
Get the fuck
would
out of here,
support,
this fucking bitch.
a rational juror
Fuck
making these
you.
inferences. And that
Nice fucking hairdo.
is a point that's in the video. But Your Honor, I would argue that his reaction is something different.
Just
And I don't
know
wanna
that
make
this
every
woman is
single
lying.
argument
She
that
knows
Rule
she's
29,
lying.
Your Honor.
And she's
Mhm.
doing everything that she can to put an
But
innocent man away for life.
So if
That's
it's
the
way
a point
these
of
people
I'm
proof,
not sure I follow you. Where
They
you
don't
wanna
give
make
a
your
fuck.
argument?
Yeah.
I don't want to
She
give my
does
entire
not
closing
think I'm
argument.
guilty.
Shouldn't
Neither
be.
do any of those people standing behind her,
Okay, sure.
sitting behind her. None of them.
And then you have to
Mm-mm.
also consider the defendant's behaviors immediately after the next day, and the following day. Also, in the light of a homicide, continuing that he needs to push this, it's a staged suicide. I don't know where my wife is at. John Kramer says,
Why didn't I mention suicide right away?
notice he was smoking in the condo.
When they asked me if she was
John
suicidal,
Kramer
why didn't I
said
say
he knew in
absolutely?
that instance,
First
Emily
day.
Right.
was
That
not
would have helped
coming
your
home
case.
Because the defendant. is
Why would,
smoking
if
in
I
the
wanted
condo.
it to be a staged suicide,
He continues
why
to
wouldn't
refer
I
in the
immediately,
past
as soon
tense,
as I
because
got
the
there,
labor
go,
force will
you know,
not
listen,
consider
she's
that.
got problems. She's suicidal.
Mhm.
Those two things also, Your Honor, point to the
You're
fact
gonna
that
wait
he
because it's
knows
not odd,
she
then you
is
wait some
dead
more because it's
and that
odd.
she's not
You don't want to
coming home,
wait,
and the
or you
result
don't want to
of
call
this
because that means you have to
he
admit yourself
killed
that
her.
something's wrong. Yeah, you're gonna naturally
And it's
say,
important
no,
when
nothing's
he
wrong.
shows up
It
to
will.
the interview with
everything's
law
fine.
enforcement, if he truly had no reason to know, he had just woken up, like he wants law enforcement to believe, he has no reason to think she's dead, but yet his first words are unprompted, "I didn't do it."
Well, hang on a second.
You,
He's
that,
just
that,
taking down
you,
police
that's the
department.
third day. That's
He's behind
Wednesday.
doors.
Your Honor, I'm
He's
making a
taking his
ruling.
mirror
They
rights.
pretty much arrested
Your Honor,
me. Threw me
I
down in a
understand, but
squad
I'm making an
car.
argument for the facts
I've
and a light
explained all
most
this. That's
favorable to the
nonsense.
state.
Okay.
You fucking
Fair
Yeah.
enough, fair enough.
And
You
a
did.
light
You
most
talked
He just
favorable
said
to
that
the state,
too.
all right?
He
Mike,
said that
you
was the
talked
third
about
day after you were Mirandized. So
His
you were already
actions
under
are
arrest at
that
that
of an
point.
individual who
Out
knows
of,
his wife is
out of the
coming
blue,
home.
I just
He
happened
refers
to
to her
say
in
it
past
like
tense. He
that.
is smoking
He's
in the
not.
condo. He says, "I didn't do it." Your Honor, this is a staged suicide, made to believe manual strangulation is like a suicide, and his behaviors immediately after that demonstrate that he is an individual who already knows his wife is dead. He's acting like she is dead, and his behaviors indicate that, and he can't act that way if he doesn't know she is dead, Your Honor. He is the only
What?
individual that has
Fucking, what are you, fucking 6 years
the need
old?
to make this death appear to be a staged suicide. And, we talked a little bit about his words, and I just want to remind the court too that John Kramer also indicated that he overheard a loud argument shortly in the days, I don't remember the exact time frame right now,
Yeah, he couldn't remember either because he couldn't remember what day it was.
2 weeks before, yes.
You can't remember the day, and neither can he, because you're both fucking dummies. Fucking.
The most frustrating part is the judge is not
Okay,
buying
thank
a word of this, and he still proceeds.
He and I have an issue with him there. That's about it. But I think he just said, you know what? I think he trusted the jury to do the right thing. I think he.
Yeah, I think he's like, there's no way in hell they're going to convict.
Right.
So
I think
I
he
might as well not make waves.
Right.
With respect to the issue of, was
And I
there a
guess that's
homicide?
cool, but then it was.
Screw that. With respect to, is there
I was like,
any
what? You're gonna let this go on?
between Emily's possible manner and cause
Well,
of
and the
death
truth is that
and
jury verdicts
No.
are very rarely
It's one of those
overturned,
things where we
but
can say we
judge
can
verdicts
do
are
it.
more likely to be overturned. So if he was completely convinced that it wasn't ever going to be a guilty verdict, I think he probably just allowed the jury so he had that additional, backing. But
and the court well knows that there's an instruction literally against double stacking of inferences. Can you draw one inference from a set of facts? Yes. Can you draw an inference upon an inference upon an inference? No. This case, Your Honor, with respect to connecting any manner or cause of death of Emily Noble to Mathew Moore is completely void of evidence. And I don't say that, and I want to say this because I know how defense attorneys are perceived. Sometimes I am not saying that to preserve the record. I am saying that because this is absolutely under no circumstances a case that you go to jury. It is literally nothing to tie him there. You talk about the stage scene. This stage scene, well, first of all, I know the doctor's not issued a report and testified, but let's just go to that scene. They want to say it's staged. Okay, they have doctors not saying that. Who?
that's true too. He could have thrown out the
Do
guilty.
they have to
Yeah.
get Matt Moore to that scene staging? Now, I've just heard the prosecutor say that there's a 4-hour window of time during the night when most of us are sleeping, and when, by the way, he said he was sleeping. That is a time when nothing is going on. The cell data certainly supports that. It's during that time that the state is arguing, based on speculation, that that's when he killed. That's what they've just argued, and they certainly implicitly argued that from the testimony of Detective Gross.
They switched that, by the way.
What we know, Your Honor, that John Kramer sees her at 9 or 10 a.m. And I want to say something interesting, is that the state just now, in its Rule 29 argument, used John Kramer twice at the end to support the smoking of the condo, right? And I forget what other point about John Kramer. They just can't have it both ways, Your Honor. John Kramer did not come in here and retract his testimony. That's not what it was. He said he cannot be positive that he saw her on the 25th. But we
Right.
know, Your Honor, from the cell phone records, that on the 24th at 9:39 a.m., she's in Neutral, Ohio. Not only do we know that from the
Case
cell phone,
fucking
we have
closed.
photographic evidence of
Mhm.
Kramer as well at the
Yeah.
screenings. We know from the testimony of Detective Grubbs that it's an hour and a half each way. So when you look at what John Kramer said and then his testimony that he can't be 100% sure, the cell phone records are everything. Because what he did say is it's either the 25th I saw her or it's the day before. And we know it couldn't have been the day before. So she's alive on the 25th. She's alive. And Matt, they want to use Matt's words against him, but Matt Moore said to the police that he woke up late morning, consistent with 9 to 10 a.m., John Kramer saying her. And it's not just John Kramer that says that. We know that from Officer Hollis's video that that's what he told Officer Hollis. And Your Honor, Defense Exhibit G is literally the Westerville Police Report, that's the press release that says she was last seen at 9 a.m.
They
That's
released
from
a
the
press
Westerville Police
release
Department.
on
That's not
Tuesday.
influenced by Matt Moore.
Yeah.
It said she was
That's
last
not
seen
Matt
on
Moore.
Monday
That's the
between
Westerville
9:30 and
Police
10.
Department talking.
Holy shit.
She's
What more do you
alive on the
want?
25th. He calls 911, knows a GPS on his car as of the 27th. The 26th, he's giving statements with law enforcement. He's taking them to the area and saying, she walks this area. Now, the prosecutor wants to say that did he check that area in the absence of a search means he must have killed his wife? But we know from testimony, even from Amy Thomas, I asked her at the end of her testimony, just because you didn't come to Ohio and search for your sister, does that mean you don't love her? And she said, no. That's nothing, that's speculation, that's inferences, and it is certainly not, even when viewed in a light most favorable to the state, enough to put this case in the hands of a jury. Purpose, Your Honor, is the specific intention to cause a certain result. Where does it show he intended to kill her, that staged her? And Your Honor, I want to talk about something that I wasn't allowed to ask about, but now it certainly seems relevant. You know, as a former prosecutor, the state has the power to file charges, put evidence forth in front of a grand jury, and importantly, they have the ability to amend an indictment at any point. This is a case of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of felonious assault. There has been so much about this cooler. First of all, there's no evidence that USB cords were ever kept in the garage. But Your Honor, he's not charged with tampering with evidence. And you know what else he's not charged with? Abuse of a corpse. How does she get to the park if their theory is the crime scene is at the house? And I will tell you that during his testimony, Detective Grubbs actually said, we did it. I asked him why you didn't do all these things at the house, and he said, certainly, if I ever need to get there, that it was not a crime scene. Because there's nothing to prove that anyone was killed inside of 46 Avenue Cross. To say
And there
someone
would
was
have
killed there is speculation and is an
You
inference.
can't
upon
murder
inference.
someone in a house that
And
clean.
then they want to take you that she's
You
killed
can't.
there. And then somehow.
No, there's
under
something
the
there.
Darkness or lightness, she's moved to an area where we know you can't drive a car along county roads. We know from
And
the women that found the body.
how am I
you
gonna
can't
get her
walk
up there?
through On the other
How do
side
I get her
without
up there?
Crawling under branches. We know he's 6 feet tall. It's not, it's just, Your Honor, there isn't even enough. There's nothing to connect Matt Moore to the body in the woods. And they can't just focus on nobody else would do this. That's certainly not enough to go back to the jury, just because they don't have another suspect. Purpose is one of the elements. There is no evidence of purpose. And if the court is unsure, the best they have from his mouth is the text messages. And they have an individual, and if you want to now believe John Kramer about the arguments, that was the other thing that John said.
Hey, Aaron.
The arguments, that was the other thing they were relying on John Kramer for. The arguments and the smoking. Your Honor, I asked John Kramer, and there was even a follow-up question from a juror. Did he hear arguing the night of the 24th or the 25th? And he said no. Also, Your Honor, with respect to John Kramer and the smoking, I went over the detective of all the photos of if there's any ashtrays or cigarettes taken from the house, and there were none. Your Honor, this just can't be a case that goes back to the jury. It is speculation, and it is truly exactly why that inference stacking instruction exists in OJI. That's what we have here. Thank you.
And just to let you know,
Keep going back and forth for a while.
Emily and I never argued like that. We never screamed at each other ever.
Defense counsel.
We weren't. If you knew how we were.
Defense counsel has commented quite a bit on the credibility.
And the guy that
of
was
the
last
witnesses
to
and
see her
the
alive
I
was the
understand
guy
the
making
credibility
that
falls
claim.
here, so I'm
too.
moving it.
Yeah.
So
You know what I mean?
credibility is not a
Yeah.
29 decision.
Hey, John, you have to be the last person to see her
You must
alive.
view the evidence.
Right.
in light
Okay.
most
Right.
favorable to the state.
No, I think I might have seen her the day
No
before,
one
and I heard
has
him
said
arguing too,
that the
like a week
state's
before.
theory is
Yeah,
that this
fuck you,
crime
John
was
Kramer.
committed at the house.
We have no idea what this crime is, right?
Creepy
They could have
weirdo
been
from
committed
across
in
the
woods,
street,
Your Honor, where her body was
Yeah.
found.
Yeah.
always watching, always out there. I got if you look in my book, I got a picture of him. It's
I
hilarious.
saw that. Yeah.
And I do want to
That-
talk about John Kramer for a second because
Well, we've already come to the conclusion, I'm not going to consider his credibility, I'm just consider the evidence in the light most favorable to you, which I will do. So I don't need to worry about his credibility. I mean, I'm not being demeaning, I'm just saying, I'm with you on that.
so purpose.
She has nothing to argue it. She argued it for over an hour. Like, that's impressive in its own right.
Yeah.
There's motive, there's certainly opportunity, he is the only individual.
What was the motive again?
who needs to make this look like a staged suicide, Your Honor, in addition to absolutely everything else.
Anyways,
I don't.
anything else?
Yes, Your Honor, 24 years.
I asked her like a month before if she wanted a divorce. That's motive.
And we still don't even know
Yeah,
what the
2
theory
months
is.
before they said.
2 months. Yeah, December.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
This is a case that the state has been trying to develop as we go. And quite frankly, it's just not fair. My client sits here charged with murder, 2 counts, 15 to life in prison. It just isn't, the system has to be better than this. And I really do mean this with all my conviction. How are we here when where she's killed, we don't even know. We don't even know that. And it's not
No
like
idea.
we know maybe, we don't even know then.
We can have a homicide without a body. right?
Well, we can have a homicide without a body, but we have a body in a wooded area and nothing to tie Mathew Moore to that. And it's not just the lack
Nothing.
of physical evidence. You can't
Nothing.
get around purpose.
Nothing.
Smock, Dr. Smock, he can talk
That's
all
what I
he
was
wants
gonna name
about
my book at
manual
first.
strangulation.
Nothing.
There is zero evidence.
Oh.
This man strangled her. Zero. I mean direct or circumstantial. And I recognize it's not the court should look at it
Hey,
through the
Skid.
lens of homicide. The court should
Hey,
look at it and
Skid.
understand through the lens of evidence in the light most favorable to the state. It's still each and every element, Judge, as you know, for it to go back to this jury. Where is there even a scintilla of evidence as to purpose?
There's none
There's none.
anywhere.
I would ask the court to grant a retainer.
All right, I will consider it submitted, and obviously, since I have to make the decision right away, I will do so on this issue tomorrow morning before we begin anything else in the case. You've had an opportunity to talk about exhibits at this point. let's at least get that so I can consider those exhibits as I ruminate on this issue. I think I was presented with certain.
Okay, so we don't need to go through exhibits. That's procedural. Early midstream Griff, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because YouTube unsubscribed a bunch of people again today. So yeah, thanks, Daddy. Let me throw that up there.
He should be a mod.
Oh, crap is a bitch. There we go. All right, so now we are going to day 7. Day 7. And this is where he apologized for his
His
poor
leash.
comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they have one more. I assume it's a rebuttal to try and build their case more. Fuck, I don't know.
It's a witness.
Oh,
I don't know why they put him in there, but it's a weird spot to put him. But there is another witness.
Yep. So. There's no sound, is there?
No.
Give me 1 second. Professionals. I think I have no sound. What the hell's going on? Why in the fuck would there be no sound?
Maybe it's the feed?
No, because I actually previewed this one.
Either an email or a conversation, perhaps.
Oh, it's StreamYard being a bitch. Okay, here we go. Should have it now.
And in fact, I want to say that objection is no.
All right, give it just 1/10 of a second here.
Oh, I guess
you
I
on
didn't
that
pick up the
operating?
audio.
Huh?
Oh, was it playing? I don't think I heard the
You're gonna-
audio. Oh, there it goes.
No, I'm sorry, but I would object to going forward anyway right now without the elected county prosecutor who's on this case.
But she chose not to be here.
That's not accurate, Judge.
Okay,
We had-
okay, your objection's noted.
We had a phone status conference 2 weeks ago in which Ms. Schiff.
Your objection is noted. Okay?
I'm not going to participate in this proceeding without the elected county prosecutor. I think this is a sham that you're going forward.
You're going to sit here. You're going to sit here.
You were told about her unavailability and you specifically told her on the phone not to cancel that appointment, that it wouldn't be.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to be here for the decision, that's your business.
Well, Your Honor, I think this is outrageous. You're going forward without the prosecutor.
I prepared my remarks and my decision here today. And I am, I guess, I am glad I had the opportunity to spend the night to do some deliberation on this matter and think about it. But I want to kind of begin with the sidebar before I go to the motion itself. And it's an apology I'm going to make to the defense team here. Before you made your motion, I made a few statements that were probably an effort at humor, but I think they could have been interpreted as intemperate, unnecessary, or perhaps even offensive. And that was certainly not my intention. And I likewise did not in any way try to imply that your motion was simply a matter of
Dan's
record,
laughing.
an administrative act, and perhaps without merit. And I say that not only because that wasn't my intention, but your arguments were well-spoken, compelling, well done, and very professional. And in fact, I want to say that both lawyers have been professional throughout this entire case. You're the kind of lawyers that any judge would want on his or her docket trying a case. And I want you to know that. And I regret a lack of reciprocal professionalism for that moment there. And I wanted you to know how I felt. And I wanted to share that with you. It's not reflective, I hope, of who I am. The court as I said, has had an opportunity to consider this case for a significant period of time last night. And I note that in my 20 years, both as a sitting judge and a visiting judge, I have rendered decisions on Rule 29 motions in every criminal case, and I've denied those motions and I have granted those motions. But I think I can say this has been the most difficult motion for me to consider. And again, I'm glad I had the time to reflect upon the arguments made by counsel. And I think probably one of the reasons it's difficult is that both the state and the defense have made very compelling arguments. Perhaps it's more the state
bullshit.
evidence presented that I'm working with that I've had to spend a lot of time.
Facts not in evidence.
I want to begin this decision by
Bullshit.
saying what is not part of the court's consideration. I am not judging the credibility of any of the witnesses. who
Because
testified,
Raggedy
nor
Ann
the weight of
couldn't
the
show up
witnesses,
today.
nor in any way whatsoever injecting my personal opinion
That's
if any,
right.
as to what I would think
Oh,
the state
they've
of the
already gone
evidence
through that?
is.
Yeah.
I am certainly not
Yeah.
considering this case.
Yeah,
on the
you
standard
missed
of
it.
beyond a reasonable doubt. As we all know, the standard is to look at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state without any of those other considerations. And the court has done so. And my job, if you will, is to determine whether or not there's evidence in which jurors could come to even different conclusions, but one which would be a decision in favor of the state. Now, I have already indicated, and I reaffirm at this point in time, that the state has amply satisfied its burden in regard to the motion, in regard to the establishment of this being a homicide and a staged suicide. With that determination, following that, a vast majority, if not the great majority of the elements of murder, both purposeful murder and felony murder, as well as felonious assault, are satisfied by that finding by itself. The issue that's primarily before the court is the question of the identification of the perpetrator who has committed this homicide and staged suicide from the evidence. What probably has made this case most difficult is that there is no direct evidence establishing the defendant as the perpetrator in this case. Now, the state is not legally required to do that, but it does enhance the decision process at this time to be more circumspect. Clearly, as the state has acknowledged as well, that circumstantial evidence is the cornerstone of this case. And the inference reasonably raised from the evidence that in a natural and logical way would follow, and according to the common experience of mankind as to what those inferences are drawn from direct evidence, is what the court must look at. And I think consistent with the requirement that the court look at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, the court must also look at the inferences in the light most favorable to the state. So the court has considered the circumstantial evidence provided. The state has, I believe, and perhaps a bit ironically, established the question of motive. The defendant is married to the deceased. The evidence is presented that they've had chats and messages to each other that have been classified as difficult, argumentative, including one not to each other, but one on May 7th, where the defendant declared that his marriage was over. Evidence that 2 weeks prior to the argument, there was testimony that there was a very loud argument in the garage. Statements made that are inconsistent with some of the facts determined by law enforcement, and misstatements or even lies made to police. And of course, evidence in regard to the argument that Mr. Moore made statements in the past tense, which inferentially is that the speaker would have known that even though the deceased was not discovered, she was not going to be discovered alive. This kind of is the evidence that demonstrates that the defendant could very well have been unhappy and angry with his wife, and the behavior after he reported her missing could circumstantially infer that he knew something that he was not telling the police.
He does pretty good.
The state also presented evidence,
That's not
largely
bad.
through the digital
Yeah.
Forensic evaluation of the defendant's cell
Better
phone,
than the fucking
which, as we all know,
prosecution.
reflects the usage activity and non-user activity of the phones, that reflected for approximately 3.5 hours on the evening of.
Well, definitely read Matt's book. It's on
Yes,
Amazon.
very
Go
good.
get it. It fills in so much.
Mm-hmm.
I try and ask some questions to kind of bait him into it, but most of the shit is in his book anyways. So
And
Go-
do you know
go read.
that Connie, juror number 8, and I are going to write like a another book. She's gonna write.
Yeah.
She's gonna write it. She's a real author, and she's gonna write about her experience being a juror on a case like this. And there's probably gonna be a lot more of information in that from me also. But it's gonna be like a dual story. I'm gonna tell mine,
Yeah.
and she's gonna tell hers at the same time, and that's something I'm really looking forward to, because my book is It was just something I did very quickly just to get my story down, to get my thoughts down. Now
Yeah.
that I'm into this, I know there's a whole lot more that probably people are interested in, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it too. And your book
Absolutely.
fills in a lot of the holes. So
To be sitting on a juror, it's gonna to listen to Connie tell you what it was like to sit on a juror and listen to this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So she was on Dateline, so
Okay. If you have a heart attack and die, it's a goddamn homicide. It's very easy description to reach. Why does the state keep saying that they proved it? As it was hard to prove there was a body, for fuck's sake. I don't know. I don't know. But Matt didn't smoke in the house, or did? Not?
no, I didn't. I started smoking in the
Yeah.
house after my brother left, which was 3 weeks after. He showed up on
Yeah.
Friday, stayed there for 10 days. So it was going on 3 weeks when and I don't know when John said he smelled, he thought he smelled, they made it appear that he smelled smoke. He smelled smoke
Immediately.
smelled smoke
Yeah.
on Monday, the day I called her in. Now that might have been compelling evidence if the day I called her in, I just started lighting up and smoking. But
Right.
where they would have had more people on the stand saying that would have been compelling, because there was
Yeah.
cops and my family and her friends, and there were people all over the place. Yeah, and Matt was
Right.
smoking. How odd is that? I started
Right.
smoking 3 weeks after she went missing. By that time, I started smoking. I started drinking
Yeah.
and smoking. in the
Mhm.
house,
Right.
so.
I mean, 3 weeks of somebody missing, yeah, it's gonna make you.
I started
forget it.
smoking in the garage, and then eventually I'm just like, you know what? If this,
Fuck it. Right.
I'm mad at my wife now. I'm like, you're out there, you're hiding for some reason. I'm mad at her, so I'm not really concerned about whether she's going to be mad. She comes home and I'm smoking in the house. That was the last thing I was worried about.
Right.
No, I get that for sure.
But they in court during trial, they made it try to look like, and they used it during their closing, right? Or this part of it, that I'm smoking in the condo the day I called her in. Not true. They know it wasn't true, but they're saying it. This is what they do. They try to trick you. They're trying to trick the jurors. That's a trick tactic. They knew that I wasn't smoking that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that first week, that first 2 weeks. They know that. But
Yeah.
they said they'll use it in trial. And this is what's happened in other trials, I'm sure. But they'll use
Yeah.
it.
Trying to bait you in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Keep moving with the
Of
judge.
May 24th and the morning of May 25th, that there was no activity for which time period any acts of the defendant were unaccounted for. Now, again, several inferences may be drawn from that, certainly, but the inference most favorable to the state is that he could very well have been engaged in the conduct that resulted in the demise of his wife.
Possibly.
Prosecution went to law
the
school
argument
at the
presented by the
Ringling
state,
Brothers
based
Clown
upon the
School.
evidence presented in its totality, is that, again, under the rule, the court has made the finding that this was a homicide and staged suicide from the evidence in the view most favored to the state. And the question raised from that evidence, by working from that, is who would be a perpetrator, who would take the time and necessity not only of ending the life of an individual, but taking the effort to stage it so it would appear to be a suicide. Now, we obviously know, and the evidence reflects, that within 48 hours, the police provided the Miranda rights to the defendant. So he certainly began this case as a person of interest upon whom suspicion would fall, and that's virtually the case every time when a spouse is missing or is found to be a victim of a homicide. Certainly, circumstantially, based upon that evidence, based upon the conclusion that the court's finding that this is a homicide and staged suicide, is also rather consistent with the thought that the evidence provided the fact that suicide over a significant period of time has affected the difficulty in the lives of both the defendant and his wife, which likewise has a bearing upon why that could very well have been staged by her husband. Again, at this time, considering all of this evidence and in light of what the court has preliminarily addressed regarding the nature of the court's decision, I find at this time that taken in total, the state has met its threshold burden to allow this matter to be considered by the jury, and thus the Rule 29 motion presented timely at the close of the state's case will not be granted. The court will simply state for the record at this time, and particularly since we are coming to the close of the state's case due to our unique agreed circumstances, that the court on its own motion is going to take under advisement a Rule 29 motion at the conclusion of all of the state's presentation of evidence, and will proceed accordingly. Now, with this decision, we are now at the point where I guess we should take this opportunity, if you wish, to go over jury instructions. Are there any, is the state ready or willing to?
I'm going to skip ahead because we just go through jury instructions. So we'll get to the testimony again.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to the jury, if you could.
My name is John Bolte, and I'm a professor at Ohio State University.
Before I ask you just a few questions about that, Your Honor, at this time the parties agree that Dr. Bolte is an expert in biomechanical engineering.
That's true, no objection. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Bolte, you just indicated that you're a professor. Tell us about what you do at Ohio State.
I am a full professor in the School of Health and Rehab Sciences, which is within the College of Medicine at Ohio State University. I'm also the director of research for the school, and I serve as the founder and director of the Injury Biomechanics Research Center at Ohio State.
Do you have a CV?
I do.
Showing the witness what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit SS.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Sam.
Thank you.
Dr. Bolte, does this look familiar? Let me go to the last page. It appears to be 46 pages long.
That is familiar, yes.
And when did you provide this to me at some point since we met?
Yes, when you came to my office to meet the first time, I provided this copy to you.
And if you recall, when was that meeting?
I do not recall. I would say two to 3 weeks ago.
Does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy of your current CV marked as Defendant's Exhibit SS?
It is.
Tell us a little bit about how you became involved in this case with respect to Emily Noble.
I first became involved on October 26, 2020. I received an email from Detective Grubbs requesting if I knew anyone who could help test a tree to see how much mass the tree could suspend. And it was just an open email, and I responded with, I don't have a lot of expertise with the tree, but I might be able to support this.
When you say mass, what does mass mean in that context?
Weight.
And as a result of that initial outreach from Detective Grubbs, what, if anything, happened next?
We exchanged a few emails. I believe there was an email from a tree expert that had a suggestion of how to test the tree. We decided to meet on November 6th at 9 a.m. at the location so I could view the tree and brainstorm what engineering tests we could do to potentially test this tree branch. So the first meeting was there at the scene on November 6th of 2020.
If you recall, who was there at the scene on November 6th?
Detective Grubbs in Alloway, myself, Dr. Yoon-Siak Kang, who is another professor in the IBRC, along with myself, and Dr. Amanda Agnew, who is also within the IBRC.
Was there another time that you went out to that same location?
We actually went back out on November 11th to run the tests that are in my report.
Which takes me to, did you write a report in this case?
Yes, I did.
Showing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit VV, as in Victor. And Dr. Bolte, there is a copy of that same report in front of you.
Thank you.
If you could flip through it, 6-page report, and let the jurors know if that appears to be a fair and accurate copy of the report that you issued in this case.
It is an accurate copy.
Let's go through it if we could. The date of the issuance of the report?
It was January 31st, 2021.
When the report was finished, to whom did you send it?
I sent it to Dr. Grubbs, or Detective Grubbs, excuse me.
Now, let's go through. You mentioned that you went back to the scene again on November 11th of 2020. Let's talk about what you did when you went back. But before we talk about what you did, tell the jurors what you brought with you to do the testing.
So after we visited on the 6th and looked at the landscape to see what we might be able to bring to run the test, we came back on the 11th with several pieces of equipment to allow us to do a couple different tests. One was a camera, a regular camera that could take still photos and video, and a tripod to set that camera up on. We also brought a data acquisition system, which is used to, when you're running a scientific test, collect data, whether that's from an accelerometer or any type of instrument that could record motion or something along those lines. So it just is like a computer. We had a laptop to connect to the data acquisition system to collect the data. We had a inline load cell that I have with me here this morning to suspend from the branch so we can record how much weight was hanging from the branch. We had an empty milk carton basket to hold weights. We had a series of different weights of different amounts so that we could add to it slowly to see what would happen to the branch. And then finally, we had a 5th percentile female anthropomorphic test dummy, which is known as a crash test dummy, which is used to crash test when they do a frontal crash test in the United States, NHTSA, they use this dummy. And they also use it actually in a couple other tests. It is a size of a small female. It weighs approximately 105 pounds.
And have a good night, EP.
Were you given at any point prior to the scene on November 11th a weight with respect to the tree branch, a weight that the Westerville Police Office wanted you to test against, if that question makes sense?
I was not given a specific weight. I was just told a small female. And we happen to have the dummy that we could use that is supposed to represent a small female.
And the dummy, the crash test dummy that you used again weighs approximately how much?
It's between 105 to 110 pounds, depending on what instrumentation is inside of it. We did not use any instrumentation in the dummy. We just used the dummy.
God, yes, he is.
Did you bring a USB cord with you?
I did. I brought
cover
2
that
USB
lunch tonight.
cables. I had asked Detective Grubbs if he knew a serial number, something that we could try to match the USB cable. And I went out and purchased 2 10-foot long gray USB cables that I thought were similar to the best of my ability.
Going now to what you did at the scene. You indicated that you had a camera and video. Did you run tests at the scene?
We did. We ran 2 different sets of tests.
And before I actually go into the test, from your perspective as an expert, biomechanical engineer, and you walked down there in early November and you first saw the branch, what was your thought?
Streams up.
As a biomechanical expert, I do not know anything about trees. So I don't know the strength of trees. So it's really, I can't really comment further than that. I know the body, I don't really know trees.
Show the jurors sort of how big the branch was in terms of circumference.
I would approximate it to have been maybe 1 to 2 inches in circumference. And it was about an inch over my head. So we measured, and I'm a 6'6", so it was about 6 foot 7 inches off the ground when we tested it on the 11th.
Let's talk to the first test that you did at the scene. Static mass test. What is that?
So we thought the first test would just be something to add weight step by step to see how much weight the branch could hold. I had no idea, as I mentioned, I'm not a tree expert. I know how to run scientific tests to look at boundary conditions or to test something that's similar to maybe what occurred there. And so we thought, let's just start with an empty crate hanging from a USB cable through this device and add weight in steps to see if we could get close to 100 pounds without the brake branching in a very static, meaning no motion, just put the weight, wait a few seconds, add the next weight.
How did you know how to tie or fasten the USB cord to the branch?
I didn't fasten the cord to the branch. I fastened the cable, one end of the cable. So this load cell records weight by pulling on it. It's a tension. So if you pull it, it can measure how much I'm pulling on it right now. So we looped the USB cable through one end of it, and it had 2 wires coming up over top of the branch, and then came down to the basket. On the first static test, it came back to this, and then we had a separate USB cable going to the basket. We used 2 cables, I believe, on the first test. So it wasn't tied directly to the tree. They were more tied to the load cell. There were 2 marks in the tree branch that we were able to see, that we made sure the 2 cables from the USB were sitting in those same 2 marks that were already in the branch. So that's how it was set to the tree. They were in the grooves that were in the branch.
And in paragraph, the last full paragraph of your report, you talk about the discrete intervals of adding the weights. Tell the jurors what those numbers mean at the end there with respect to the static test.
Honestly, before we went to the scene, we walked around our lab to find weights that we could throw into the basket. And so we have, over the years of doing different tests, we have different weights of different masses, and we found ones that were 33, 15. And I apologize, as I look at this, I know there was a 2-pound weight as well. So we got up to around 96 pounds of total static weights. We put 5 different segments of weight in before the basket slipped to the ground.
And each time you added a weight to the basket, was that captured on film?
It was. We had the camera, I forget if it was our Sony camera, it's probably stated in here, running the entire time in regular motion, regular speed, recording the weights. The camera just ran constantly, and we just kept adding weights to it.
I want to walk through each video, each time the weights were added, and we can talk about them, and then I'll ask you if they're fair and accurate copies. We'll play the first one that we've marked as we'll do defendant's exhibit UU, and we'll mark all 5 as that, Your Honor. Oh. And Dr. Bolte, the screen in front of you
Fine.
works as well, too.
My dog.
My dog.
So before we play it, tell us what we're seeing
My dog's
here.
on stream though.
So what you're seeing here, and it's a little hard to see because of the branches in the background to see the gray cables, but it's an empty milk crate that is hanging from one USB cable that's tied to all 4 corners. There are no weights in the basket this time. Going up to the load cell that's in the middle there, and then again, the USB cable going up and over the tree. And as I look at this video, I apologize, there was a knot around the tree at this time. It was a knot that was below the tree with the 2 wires on top, but as we place the weight, you'll see the knot slipped up against the tree. Thus my forgetting at the beginning that initially the knot was not on the tree.
You can mark your screen too, but tell us you have something in front of you, and I circled something there on the scene. If you can see it, what is that?
This what you just circled is this load cell that's hanging in there. There was a turnbuckle hook on each end in addition to what I have here today. I did not bring those, so there was hooks that we could run the wires to, but this is what's in the middle of the red there, this interface tension load cell.
And what this appears to be something in your hands there.
That is the first weight that we
Mine.
placed in the basket. This is a 33-pound piece of material that we had in the lab from past testing.
Let's go ahead.
My dog Skeeter.
My dog's physically here though.
Oh,
No
I'm not going to
picture.
get Apollo. He'll be.
She's physically
Came in for the
here.
second weight. That first weight was 33 pounds.
Correct.
Let's go to the next video, please.
This guy's a professor at OSU.
Okay.
That's not a mistake. They put as much OSU into this case as they could.
Right.
If you had
Yeah.
anything to do with OSU,
Was
they
there a
meant.
certain amount of time that you waited?
It's the home
between
team.
Adding weights?
It was a judgment weight.
Like that's
we just
gonna work with
paused
the
for a
bird.
second to see if the branch was going to be stable. As you saw when I had the first weight, I didn't know how the weight would fall in the basket and what would happen. But then the knot that was just kind of between the branch and the load cells I mentioned, it slid up and tightened, and that's why the basket dropped so much, and that caught us off guard. So then we kind of waited each time to see if there'd be a little more slippage as that knot continued to tighten and tighten. So it was more just a judgment call to say, okay, the system is balanced, the basket's not going to fall, the tree branch is going to break, let's add the next weight.
Let's go to the next one.
Probably.
As part of the static test, are you
Probably
also
another
measuring the
academic.
deflection of the branch?
Yeah, so we didn't measure the deflection in between each weight. We had the original height, and then once we were done with all the weight that we added to the basket, we were able to pause the film, and we calculated about, I think it's almost 3 inches, 2.96 inches that the branch deflected down from the static test.
And is that 2.96 inches, page 4 of 6 in your report? Or no? sorry.
It is 2.98 inches, excuse me. It's written on page 3, and the data, the plot that shows it is on page 4, figure 3.
And I will toggle back to that as soon as we're done with the videos. Let's look at the next video. So we're still at the static test here where you're getting nearly 100 pounds.
The last weight that I just added there was roughly around 14, 15 pounds, and then
There's one more video. We'll play that now.
the last weight is identical, again, around 14 or 15 pounds.
And then in that last image, we seem to see the USB slips and the basket falls. And what, if any, effect does even that have on that branch?
It wouldn't have any effect on the branch. It was just a matter of we were afraid if the milk crate was going to break. We thought we were already close to 100 pounds. Right before I put the last weight in, which would have taken, I think, to 110, we were at 96. And I felt that was enough to say that, okay, we can hang the crash test dummy on the branch and the dummy won't break when we initially hang the dummy. So the static test was one, to see if we could get close to 100 pounds without it breaking, and then also making sure that when we try to hang the heavy crash test dummy, that it also would support the dummy weight.
So I want to go back to page 3 of 6 of your report, where we talked about the deflection of the branch in the static mass test. You indicated 2.9 inches when 96 pounds was statically suspended. Just explain to us one more time if what that visually looks like.
So again, the branch was initially 6'7" off the ground. Once the 96 pounds was added, the branch at the location of the USB cable had deflected towards the ground about 3 inches.
And that finding, is that what's calculated on test 1, static max basket in your report?
I'm saying to myself, I can't believe the defendant had to sit through this, and now he's sitting through it again with us. How painful must that be? I think you said this is kind of almost therapeutic, right, Matt?
It is.
Watching
Very
it
much so.
again. Yeah. So-
I'm documenting my story via doing this. Once this is done, I'm gonna get on with my life, obviously, but this is my chance to tell everybody what happened.
Mhm.
So I appreciate what you guys do, because I couldn't do it, sit here by myself and do it. I need to do this for you guys. When I found out that there was people out there that actually reviewed trials, I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, excellent. And then I was like, hey, you guys want to watch it with me, so I can talk about it. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
Painful. My you have no idea how I've dealt with pain. I mean, if you know my life, I've lost my sons, and I lost my wife, my parents. I mean, I've lost so much of my life. It's part of what I do. It's just, it's hard, but it's easy for me to handle it, I guess I can say. So, and if it any way, any of this could ever help someone else, if I can help one person realize what's going on out there, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth the pain.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks for noticing, though. Thanks for
Correct. So
asking.
this is
Yeah. No, I saw it. I was like, I feel like we should address that one. So
Thank you.
the data that the data acquisition system sends to the computer that this measured the weight. And so on the bottom, you can see it says time in seconds. And so that you can see how often I added a weight. It starts at 0. And on the left is mass in pounds. And so, we started recording. There was nothing in the basket. I should state that obviously when the wire and the basket are hanging on this picks up a pound and a half. And we're able to zero that off and say, okay, we're going to call this 0 now. And so then when we start the test, it's at 0. And you can see then at approximately 4 or 5 seconds in, I added the first weight. And you can see it hung there at 33 pounds. And then you see the large jump in the data line at about 13 seconds. Can I circle? Oh. So that's at which time that slip occurred. And you saw the basket drop. That's what that is. That's that jolt from the basket. And then after that, you can see it's stayed at 33. And then about 20 seconds, I added the next 33 pound, and then the smaller 1 to 2 pounds, and then the 2 that were about 15 pounds. So the entire test lasted 1 minute and 10 seconds.
And the time interval, is what's indicated by that bottom line right there?
Yes, that's the time that each weight was placed.
You mentioned earlier about the knot that slipped. I'm just moving up page 4 of 6. Can you describe what picture B is depicting? And we'll start there.
So can I start with picture A?
You sure can. Let me zoom in so the jurors can see it. How's that?
Thank you. In picture A, you can see what we attempted to do at first. So you can see in the bottom of the picture this load cell, and you can see the little turnbuckle that was added with the hook. We ran the one USB cable up, and as I stated, there were 2 indentations on the branch, and so I ran the USB cable through those 2 indentations, and then tried to put a knot below that and just had the rest of the wire off. So that picture was taken when the basket was hanging there empty, and then as we added weights, my knot slid up against the tree, and that's when it became against the tree. So I obviously did not tie a correct knot to begin with.
And when you talk about the knot, will you circle the knot for the jurors, or how you originally tied it and then how it slipped afterwards?
I think it's just a quick through and pulled once, a very simplistic knot. And so obviously when the mask got added, all the USB cable was able to slide through it and pull that knot up to the branch.
Let's now turn to, after the static mass test, did you do a second test on the branch?
We did, and we called that the dynamic test. It was also trying to be maybe perhaps a realistic scientific test. And we started by just hanging that small female crash test dummy to make sure the branch suspended the dummy. And then we tried to lift the dummy about 6 inches and give it a little bit of a dynamic event so that there was some energy from gravity pulling on the dummy back down.
Did the crash test dummy have its legs on it, anatomically speaking?
When we first got to the scene, yes, it had its legs. When we realized with the height of the branch and with the load cell and trying to get everything to fit, we had to take the legs close to the knees off. A female, well, any crash test dummy, a frontal crash test dummy has a fixed pelvis because they're seated in the vehicle usually. And so that pelvis is at about 90 degrees. And then the legs come out, and then you have knees that come down and obviously ankle and feet. Unfortunately, dummies are built to survive crash tests of vehicles. And so they don't move like we do. They're very stiff. They're hard to maneuver. And so once we had the dummy in place, we realized the legs, as they came off the knees and down, would be resting on the ground. So we took mid-shaft femur just above the knees off. I think the report says knees. It's very close. And then once we hung the dummy without the knees, we then put the knees in the lap of the dummy and just held them there with, I believe it was tape, just to make sure we had all the mass of the dummy there. It looks funny though, because the legs were not attached. No, they were just sitting in the lap.
And this test, like the static mass, was this captured on camera?
It was. We ran video for all the events. In this event, it's critical because there's motion and that tree limb's really going to bow down, perhaps break. We didn't know when we ran the test. We wanted to have the camera rolling so that we can go back and analyze the film and try to see exactly at what point, if it failed, what point it failed, or how much it deflected.
And before we play the video, tell the jurors what we see here.
So we actually ran a video while I was attempting to suspend the dummy in a manner that we felt was similar to how the remains were discovered.
And for the dynamic test, was the USB cord placed in the same or similar spot or different?
For this case, or this test, excuse me, we used one USB cable and we tried to simulate what I knew of how things were found. And so I'm staring and kind of pulling down on the limb slightly there to ensure that the two cables are running through those same indentations when we set up this test.
And any information that you had at that point in November as to the remains or even the branch, where did that information come from?
Detective Grubbs brought with him one picture that showed the USB cable kind of coming off the back and how one end was hanging down. I asked because I really wanted to try to mimic exactly how the remains were discovered to make sure the test was realistic as possible.
Playing what's the 6th video in Defendant's Exhibit you, Your Honor? Tell us what you're doing right there with the USB cord.
So in this case, we used one, what we purchased, gray 10-foot USB cable. Once we got out of the package and measured it on the scene, we discovered that a 10-foot USB cable is actually, I think, 126, almost 127 inches. It's actually longer than 10 feet. And so what we did is there was this hook, remember, on this load cell. So we just doubled it, or folded the USB cable in half, hooked it around the hook. So you had two wires coming off, ran them through the indentations on the tree, and then there was a hook on the bottom. As we came down, I used the one end of the USB just to latch in that hook, just the normal end, and it hooked. And so there was this loop then, two coming off the top around the tree, one cable coming back to the hook. And so the loop is there, and my son, who assisted on this test, helped me place the ATD then with that loop under the chin, and the second end actually then freely hung down. So the entire setup was only hooked with one end of the USB cable. So at this point, I'm trying to make sure the one end is hooked and that the dummy would actually hang before we unhook the other end to mimic the one picture.
That's a jackass.
Let's watch Grubbs.
God, Grubbs he's garbage.
If we could pause it right there. What you were just doing at the branch there, why were you doing that?
I was trying to ensure that the USB wires were sitting in the indentation.
At this point in time, there's two videos. At this point in time, without the legs, do you know how much the crust?
I do not know the exact number, no.
Okay. And then at some point, did you add the legs to the dummy?
Yeah, if you can go back to the beginning, you can see that the legs,
Right there?
So no, the legs are still not on at this point.
Right.
The next video, just bring it up if you would, please. Try to pause. So you can see, and I'll circle it. That is the shoe and the foot of one of the legs. So if you remember the last video, it kind of stopped with the dummy with just the knees. Here, we've now placed the legs across the thighs of that dummy, and they're in the dummy's lap.
And so initially in the last video, the dummy was statically hanging. The dynamic test, before we watch this next video, tell us what you do to create the dynamic, if you will.
Well, in this situation, what you see here is the dummy, again, is around 105 to 108 pounds, and it is sitting, you might have noticed at the end of the last video, probably 6 to 10 inches off the ground. And so my son and I, and my son worked in the IBRC at this time, we tried to just lift the dummy approximately 6 inches to get the dummy in the air. And so this video starts right when we basically have lifted the dummy up and are pulling our hands out to see what would occur.
We'll start from the beginning. Dr. Bolte, is this in regular speed or slow motion?
That's slowed down.
When you dropped the crash test dummy, that was the weight that you indicated, I noticed that you ducked down. What happened as you dropped the dummy?
The dummy just ended up falling. The branch did not fail. The dummy swung down, swung up. So you'll see a little bit of motion as it oscillates until it gets back to zero. Unfortunately, I did not know. I did not want a 105-pound dummy falling on my head. So I ducked.
And it's showing you what's been marked as page 5 of 6. The results with respect to the dynamic test, are those included in your report?
They are. They're bold. Kind of this sentence right here is what I thought the most important findings were, given that the branch did not fail. We ran the test twice. In science, we like to run multiple tests just to make sure that we know the correct answer or something close to that. And so we ran it twice. One time we had 6 inches of deflection. One time we had 7 inches total that it deflected before it settled back down. And the difference in those deflections is due to not knowing exactly if my son and I lifted the dummy exactly the same height each time. You know, if we had a mechanism that we could have raised it 6 inches, pulled it out, and dropped it, then you probably would see very similar findings. But you see an inch difference just because of the attempt of trying to lift the dummy and kind of throw it in the air.
And with respect to the findings regarding the deflection of the branch, what is depicted in those two graphs that I just bracketed?
So these are similar to the last figure that we showed. Again, on the bottom is time. And as in what we call the static test, I mentioned it took 1 minute and 10 seconds. You'll see that the time across the bottom is a total of 3 seconds. So this is a much quicker event, even though the video is slowed down. You'll also notice that on the mass or the weight on this side, you know, I mentioned the dummy weighs around 105 to 110 pounds, and this only reads 90. That's due to the way we had to conduct the test. My son and I had to already kind of have some of that mass in our arms when they hit go on the data recorder, so we don't really know what the zero was. And so you don't get the whole 105 pounds because we were holding some of that mass. And so that's why when it comes out, you see the dummy weighs around 50 pounds. That means my son and I were originally holding about 60 pounds in our arms when we were suspending him, if you will.
As you conducted the dynamic test, though, there's a point when you're not holding any of the weight.
Correct. And so at time 0 is back when we kind of threw the dummy up, you will, and the dummy starts to come down the branch. So the first oscillation or the first peak is kind of that initial when the dummy comes all the way down. And then you'll see the oscillations as the dummy and the branch kind of settled out. And so from this point 00 on, we are no longer holding the dummy. It is suspended.
In total, how many tests did you conduct on that same branch that day in November?
So we conducted the static test, which took 1 minute and 10 seconds. We did the first video you showed. I apologize, I forget what exhibit it was called, but the second to last video where I was just putting the USB cable around. We hung the dummy, and then we added the legs. You could call that a test, but we didn't record any data. We were just getting the dummy in position. And then we actually, I think, total ran 3 tests where we did the lift and drop. The one test, the data recorder failed, and we didn't get any data. That's why it's not in the report. So in total, two static tests where the dummy was hanging, and then 3 tests that we added some energy to the dummy.
Of those five
Yeah,
tests,
and you've been through
how
it,
did the
so
branch,
you know
was the branch able
know
to
what it's
sustain those
about.
5 tests?
Yeah.
The branch did not fail, so I would say sustained 5 tests.
In addition to the graphs that we've talked about in your report, did you also include some photographs of the testing in your report as well?
There are photographs depicting the slipping knot and depicting how page 3, figure 2.
Showing you page 3 of 6.
Yes.
Tell the jurors what we see here in these 3 pictures.
So this is trying to show how we match the one photo that Detective Grubbs brought to the scene. And here in the middle, and I apologize, I'm not very good at this, but there you can see the end of the USB cable just sitting in the hook. And the tension of the dummy hanging off of there was able to keep that USB cable in the hook. And as I mentioned, you can see it up here a little bit. You can see the 2 cables coming up off the load cell going around the tree. The one comes and gets hooked in the hook, and you can see then the other one that was hanging down over the shoulder, which was similar to the picture that I was shown.
A couple questions about these. How is the USB cord around the head of the crash test dummy?
This is a point that's I'm not sure if you've ever seen a crash test dummy before today, but they don't look exactly like us. The neck is metal and rubber, and there's no skin around the neck. So you see the simple, you can kind of see right here the metal going up into the head, and then there's rubber metal. So there's no skin. So when you come down on the mandible, you do not have the skin that kind of attaches your mandible down to your neck. And so it actually gave us an advantage because we could slide the cable up along that
wasn't a
metal
great
rubber neck,
test.
and it actually
That's for
hooked.
sure.
Yeah.
A real person, it would have been much more
None at
difficult
all.
because of the skin. But on the crash test dummy, it was able to hang based on how it's built.
And you testified about images that you had seen with one of the cords hanging down. Is that also depicted in image 1 and 3?
It is to the best of our ability and my memory of that picture.
In image 3, it seems to be a little more clear than the video, but tell us, do you see the foot or the legs of the dummy in that image?
Yeah, so here is the knee of where it was taken off of the one side, and the foot for that one would be over to the dummy's right. And then this is obviously the shoe or the foot on the other leg, and the knee for that one would be over, almost as if the dummy was sitting cross-legged, but with the knees disconnected.
How long would you say you were overall at that scene in November of 2020? I believe it was the 11th.
I would say, I don't recall exactly, but I would say approximately an hour.
I think I asked you who was with you on November 8th when you first went to the scene. I didn't ask you, though, who was with you other than your son on November 11th.
So November 6th was the first time, to clarify. On November 11th, it was Detective Grubbs and Alloway again, and then myself, Dr. Yoon Siak Kang, who was there on the 6th, and then the third person was my son.
Your findings and conclusions with
So it was
respect to
connected
those
to the hooks
tests
was
that you
done
administered on
poorly.
November
Like,
11th,
it wasn't a great
2020.
test.
Are those all in the report marked defendants
No.
you?
They are.
Fair and accurate copy of your report?
It is.
And the findings in your report, those are made to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
They are.
Just a few more questions about the report itself. After November 11th, who did you send the report to?
I sent the report in January 2021, January 31st, to Detective Grubbs.
And at any point after the report was sent, when was the next time that an individual from this case made contact with you, either by phone or email or any kind of communication?
Objection if it's to a statement. If it's to just a time or a yes or no, no objection, but I just want to make sure it's not being a hearsay statement. Thank you.
Just the time. When did you next hear from someone affiliated, associated with this case?
I do not recall the exact date as I stated earlier, but it was an email that I received from you.
And at some
They never
point,
got back to him.
did you and I meet in your office?
We did.
I wonder if they wrote him a check.
And was that just a general time frame? I won't ask the exact date, but
Did
if you
they
tell
pay you
us.
with cash or did they pay you by check?
The week
Right.
following your email, we met in my office for an hour and we went through my report.
It was PayPal.
The
Yeah,
videos
yeah.
that we watched today, the first 5 and the last one, how did you send those videos to me? Did you give them to me?
When you visited my office for that meeting, I gave you the photos and the videos in my report, my CV on the USB.
I agree with that one.
Yes.
Your time
Assholes.
today, with respect to your hourly rate, what is your hourly rate?
My hourly rate is $300 an hour.
Prior
Sweet.
to me contacting you, as you testified to, has you done any work for the defense at all in this case?
I have not.
And when you conducted the tests and wrote this report, was this before or after you and I even meeting?
This was before we met.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor. I didn't find that very compelling. I don't
No,
No.
no, I think it was
Sir, I
poorly
spoke to
done.
you just before your testimony, but my name is Corey Go. I'm representing the state. And just have
Corey,
a few
this
questions.
guy's the worst.
Um,
He's the worst.
Do you
Oh,
know
those
Dr.
douche.
Agnew?
I do know
Yeah.
Dr. Agnew.
Okay. I told her I'd be nice to you too.
This guy's horrible. And
Mhm.
the only reason he's up there is because Wish.com Wolverine fucking stomped out and Raggedy Ann is not there today. So
They gave this guy the opening statement and the closing argument.
no shit.
No.
Wow.
What are you doing?
Wow.
You tell me, Mighty Meat. He's the worst
God.
lawyer they got. They gave him the first thing, the first argument, the opening statement, and the
Right.
last one. The last thing you heard from the prosecution was this Momo. I don't know.
Holy hell.
Ugh.
It's like they want him to lose. It makes me paranoid, dude. It's like, why would they do that?
Right. No, that
I think I told you once there was a lawyer that was on one of my chats way back, and and this guy's like, I'm a lawyer. He described this my trial as like a mock trial that they would have at law school.
Huh.
He said this reminds me because they would have mock trials at law school, right?
Yeah.
He said this is the level of lawyering from the prosecution, was like a pretend trial.
this guy's terrible.
Yeah.
This
Horrible.
guy is the worst.
Yeah.
Ian said afterwards that you wanted to prove the visual of a suicide to the jury, so it was less about facts and it was to paint the image in the jury's mind. Huh. That's an interesting take.
Yeah.
Exactly. They had 3 attorneys on this damn case.
Plus the lead detective. He was there the
Yeah.
whole time with all of his
Right.
evidence. And look at their
All of
body
his
language.
shit evidence.
Look at their. I just have periods of time when I'm like, maybe they were forced to take this to trial, and they took a dive. They just. If you read my book, you'll kind of understand my perception. It's not about guilt or innocence or getting justice. It's more about money, just generating money. They have so much money in this county. They have a lot of money in Delaware County. They just wanted a murder case because there's no murder there, and it generated so much money, power, whatever government wants to generate. You know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's our resident lawyer. That's an insult to law school mock trials.
I like that guy.
He's a
funny.
lawyer. He's a lawyer. So.
That's funny.
You have a link, brother, if you want to jump in too. It's up to you. We got about half an hour left. It's up to you. Hayden.
Yeah, if
All right,
that
we'll
lawyer
continue.
guy, yeah, come on in, man. We'd love to have you. That'd be awesome.
I've been trying to talk him into it. I know he works on
Put a ski mask on or something. And use an alias. Don't worry about it.
No, he comments all the time on stuff. He just he's in Australia, so they have different time zones.
Right.
So, but
I'm
try and
going
get him
to
in to
steal
come
that. I'm going to steal that. It was an insult to mock trials at law school. That's how bad this case was.
Yeah.
It's just, I laugh about it, but literally they stole my life savings, my mother's inheritance, and Emily's. I mean, all of it. This cost me everything. But
Yeah.
I'm happy I didn't work, and I just know that these things that as weak as this case is, it destroys people's lives, destroys them, and for what?
Yeah,
it's bad. And I'm sure you guys know I'm not the only guy out there that this happens to. Can't be.
I got him to do it. He'll be in a minute.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, we'll keep going with I don't even know what to call this guy. He's such a dipshit.
He's a professor at OSU that's like mechanical. He's a mechanical like engineer, kind of like I don't
No,
know.
I'm talking about this lawyer. This lawyer is a dipshit. Like,
Oh.
I don't
Yeah.
know. He's
Oh, you mean Corey? Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
he's
Corey.
practicing. They're like, go up there, just finish this out. We're gonna lose. We know we're gonna lose. You know that part too that they told. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Grubbs told Diane that they were gonna lose. They knew that they were gonna lose. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did I tell you that part? Yeah, I'm sure.
yeah.
They were laughing about it. Yeah, whatever. Who cares, right? Okay.
They had to have known. They had to.
They told her
how
that
shitty it was.
Diane was going to destroy them. That was the word they used. They knew that they didn't have a case and they knew that they were going to get destroyed, but they went to trial anyway because it's about fucking money. It's not about truth or innocence, guilt, justice. It's about money. These people are devil people.
No, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, we'll keep going with it.
Today, so bear with me. I'll do my best. Have you ever done a test like this before?
No, we have not done a test like this.
Okay, so the videos, the report, this was kind of a first time trying this type of test. Is that fair?
That is a fair statement, yes.
You
Okay.
fucking hired
First
them.
time you worked with a
Fucking
tree like this, I think
Right.
you testified to.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to, what are you going to do?
You're not a crime scene recreationist or anything of that nature, correct?
I am not. I'm a biomechanical engineer.
That's what he
And
is. Biomechanical
your goal in
engineer.
performing this test was to determine whether the tree branch could hold somewhere
Just
around
try to
100
put an
pounds,
innocent man in
correct?
fucking in
And that was the
prison
only
for the
goal of
rest
this
of his
test.
That
Didn't
was
work.
the only goal was to see if the branch could suspend the mass without breaking or failing.
And we saw that in the videos and some of the pictures that we've walked through so far.
Correct.
Can you stand for me, sir?
Mhm.
You said how tall are you?
I'm about 6'6" if I stand the way mom said I should.
Okay. How tall did you say the branch was when you went out there and did your initial testing?
We measured it to be 6'7".
Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you very much.
And he's the most dangerous. He's likable.
Little taller
He's
than
funny.
me.
He has everybody on
Yeah, the
his,
extra couple inches
you
on the
know,
ramp there,
Yeah.
but just for the record.
He's a dangerous man. for
Again, let's talk
Mhm.
about
for
you
a
did two
trial.
different tests. You did a static mass test 1 and then a dynamic ATD test 2, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's first talk about the static mass test, the first test you did. All right.
Mhm.
And actually, before I get there, you talked about the two cords you used. You used two 10-foot cords, correct?
On the static test, we used two 10-foot cords, correct.
Okay, and those were just USB cords.
USB standard cords, yes.
Okay, so USB on both ends.
Sorry, no. USB on one end, USB printer cable to be exact. So it was a printer end on one end, USB on the other.
And other than the two ends of the cord, do you recall anything else being in between those two ends other than just the USB cord?
Just the cable itself.
Okay. So if there are pictures of the actual cord used in this case that suggest it was a different type of cord, you wouldn't have any knowledge of that, correct?
I based what I purchased off the numbers Detective Grubbs gave me and the one picture that I was shown. So I tried to match color and as best I could.
Sure. Now, when it comes to
Match color?
the static mass test, again, you did that test involving two separate 10-foot cords, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever perform that test with one 20-foot cord?
No.
So you're not able to render an opinion if there would be any differences to your test based on one 20-foot.
Oh shit, where are you at?
Oh,
I
no,
ran
where
out
did
of spaces. Let me add a space. Okay, you're behind me, but it's okay. What's up, buddy?
Not a lot. I was literally just typing to say don't screw things up on my account, but
It's all right.
Matthew,
You're
pleasure
behind
to meet you on stream. Been watching. I keep this on in the background in the office, so it's yeah, this was a royal shit show, wasn't it?
me. This is bad.
Yeah.
Bad. So the question, not to put you on the spot, but the question I wanted to ask you is, why the fuck would you bring this ever? Like,
I have no clue. I personally feel like maybe they didn't actually have the appropriate amount of I mean, look, the standard for probable cause is very low, but bringing this to trial thinking you could get beyond reasonable doubt, I think that either they handballed this to someone that was less experienced than they should have, and they thought that would be either an easy win or an easy lose. I don't know, because, you know, you can play office politics with this sort of stuff. If it's a slam dunk that they're going to lose, it's an opportunity to potentially get someone out of the office that you don't like if you've assigned it to somebody.
That's deep. That's real. That's a layer I never even thought of.
It's literally the only reason that I can think of that why this would have actually proceeded the way that it did. As bad as it sounds, Matthew, it may have actually had nothing to do with you. They may have been trying to slam a junior lawyer that they didn't like. Because this is reprehensible, honestly.
Is it strange to you that I was told that I have no avenue for like to sue for wrongful prosecution?
No, look, unfortunately, that's part of qualified privilege for lawyers as well. I personally believe that needs to be removed across the board. They're actually looking at bringing that in for additional things over here, including individuals that make false allegations of sexual assault, which honestly I find, again, reprehensible, because as far as I'm concerned, if someone makes an allegation against someone that ruins their life and they knowingly make that allegation knowing it's false, then they should face repercussions. Like, I know it's a balancing act between people wanting to come forward, but if that's then going to be used to deliberately ruin someone's life, then no, I think there needs to be checks and balances there. So
you better be certain. You better. I mean, it's
exactly
to play politics, to do this with my life, my wealth, my family's wealth. You know, to do something to just I was told I wasn't able to sue because I was indicted by a grand jury. Once you get indicted, you can't sue for wrongful prosecution. And I hate to bring race into it, but it's more for minorities. That's what I was told too.
And that's really the main reason why we don't actually have the grand jury here for that specific reason, because it's basically a finding of your peers saying that you have in a reasonable, on the balance of probabilities as opposed to beyond reasonable doubt, that someone can reasonably find you guilty based on that grand jury. And given that they lied to them, and we're seeing this more, especially in other cases that have just gone to trial. I mean, the other one, Jeff just got the verdict on his one, where they lied to the grand jury about a key piece of evidence, even to get these guys indicted in the first place. So that's sort of the reason why we don't have it here, is that the prosecution, in order to bring it, has to be responsible for it, and then they are responsible to the Director of Public Prosecutions. But again, you can't really sue them for doing their job, unfortunately, which is frustrating to no end.
Yeah. And would it be? I don't want to put you on the spot, but in this case, I don't know how much you've been watching of it. Would it be in your opinion that these people know that I'm innocent? They're just doing it to do it. I mean, are they just so like, I have to imagine this guy's guilty, so I'm not even going to let that enter in my head. He's guilty, and I'm going to get tunnel vision, and I'm just going to go for it. You know, I mean,
well, see, the tunnel vision's a very real thing, particularly in prosecutor offices, because there is because I actually did a period in the prosecutor's office, so I know a little bit about it. I didn't spend very long there, mainly because I felt that I didn't have the heart for it because I was a human being.
Right.
But basically, what it boiled down to is they are so keen and eager to get wins to justify themselves,
right?
That I would think that look, I've seen instances where prosecutors have had to convince themselves that they are doing the right thing by prosecuting someone that may be innocent, and you've got to be a special type of asshole for that. Basically,
asshole. Very good. Good word. Great word.
I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
I blame their parents, man. I blame their fucking parents. You know what I mean? It's your mother's fault, sleeper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your fucking mother's fault. Why?
I blame the video games, the violence on TV.
I don't know if you saw the Rule 29, which is their dismissal, whatever. But that was shit. Like, that lawyer had no idea what the hell was going on, and tried to stitch together some bullshit, and it was laughable.
What they did is, I think, in the light most favorable to the state, he said, the judge said that murder was proven. He didn't say that it was a murder. He just, if you listen to him, he's like, okay, I'll give you that. A grant, it may be a murder. We're gonna let you go from there to try to prove it was him without this inference upon an inference upon an inference. Maybe he could explain that too, which is a fantastic part of law. You can get one inference off one set of facts, but you can't get
Yeah.
an inference on an inference. These people were going off of inference upon inference upon inference. They were just making things up. They had
So speculation.
me as the husband,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden, 20 inferences later, you have her dead, and you
Yeah.
can't do that legally, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it was weak. It was really weak, and I think the judge was just doing it. This is not something that I found interesting. This is not the elected judge. They brought in a retired judge because the elected judge didn't want to deal with it. Basically,
He said he had a vacation to hit or something, but he didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't.
Classy.
yeah. So this is
I got a 4 o'clock. I've got a 4 o'clock tee off time on Tuesday. I'm not doing this.
right.
I
Basically,
like this guy. He's funny.
basically. So, so that's interesting too. Judge had to shave his back. Gross. All right, we'll continue with the.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
No,
No,
Ed,
no.
anytime you want to say
Totally.
something, Ed, man, thank you so much for joining us, for sure.
Oh, good.
Longer cord versus 2 separate 10-foot cords, correct?
Correct.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been previously labeled Defense Exhibit VV. I'm going to zoom out first, but I'll zoom in for a couple portions here. Was this picture taken before you started adding weight to the basket?
Correct.
And there's a red circle in the middle of this picture. I'll zoom in a little bit. Can you identify what we're looking at there?
That is this interface load cell that's shown here.
And can you hold that up for the jury, please? You mentioned that there are hooks that go into the top and bottom, I believe.
So this load cell obviously has, I should know the mechanical term, but screws in a slot that you can hook other devices in. And so in the picture, you can
I
see
should know the
two
mechanical
turnbuckles
term?
with, it's better below the red.
Isn't that your
Right here, you
job?
can see the turnbuckle coming down and
Maybe.
this has a hook, a basic hook.
And that's made mostly out of metal.
It's all metal, yes.
So I'm looking at this picture for your first test. Is it fair to say this top portion here is a 10-foot cord?
It is, but you can see the tails coming off to the left side of the picture as I look at it.
Yeah,
This
shouldn't they
cable
zeroed it
coming
out?
Here is this cable that goes to the load cell, but here you can see some of the extra USB cable that we did not use going off to the side.
And then the bottom portion here would be the other 10-foot cord that you described?
Correct, and we use all of that because it goes down to the middle, another attempt at a knot, and then to the 4 corners of the basket, trying to figure out, or at least that handles towards the corners to figure out how to suspend that mass.
And in this initial test, you described a knot. Where does the knot begin before you start loading weight?
The knot is actually, if you can see it, is right there where those other cables are coming out. So I would estimate it's about 2 inches below the bottom of the branch there.
And that was a knot that was put there so that the cord would hang up on the branch there and not move, correct?
It was so that it would stay and not slip all the way off, correct?
Okay, so again, you have no knowledge whether there was a knot in a similar or same place in our facts and circumstances, correct? Being the case.
Correct.
Okay. Now, we watched a little bit of the video, and at some point, it's fair to say that knot slips up to the tree branch, right?
Correct.
And almost takes you out along with it. How much weight was in the basket, or how much weight did you put in the basket before that knot slipped?
It slipped at the very first weight, 33 pounds.
Okay, so 33 pounds of weight caused the knot up top there to slip at least what looks like at least 6 inches up to the top of the tree.
It slipped up. I don't know the length, but yes, it slipped up, adding weight.
Okay. And again, looking at the dynamic test, there appears to be another knot right there at the top of the basket.
Correct.
And how is the basket being held by that apparatus, we'll call it?
So as you can see on the front of the basket here, you can see a handle. There's also a handles, the same cutouts on the sides. And we just tried to route them through there and up. And to make it more difficult on ourselves, the wire actually runs through, and the wire is actually running across in the middle in here as well. Again, my degree is not in hanging a milk carton. And so it was just trying to figure out a way to suspend this and then add mass to it.
And during this test, again, we're just testing to see if the branch would hold the weight.
Correct.
So it's free hanging as opposed to being on the ground at some point.
Correct.
Except for the part where the tree branch goes down a little bit and then the whole thing kind of collapses.
Yeah, and it's because the cables slipped, the knots continue to slip, and so it ends up on the ground before we add the last weight. Correct.
Okay, so the knot continued to slip as you added just about 100 pounds of weight?
Correct.
Now, let's move then to the dynamic ATD test. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what's ATD stand for?
Anthropomorphic test device
Okay. I'm not going to ask you what that means, but we'll call it the dynamic test. All right.
or crash test dummy.
Okay. Now, again, let me ask you this. Did you use the same two 10-foot cords, or did you use something different when trying to test it dynamically?
In this case, we used one of those same 10-foot cables.
Okay. So again, not one 20-foot cable, but not one 10-foot
It's
cable?
one 10-foot cable, correct.
Okay. So if there's evidence in this case that there was a 20-foot cable, that would be different than the test you performed?
I only know what I did with the 10-foot cable.
That's fair. Thank you. How about, I guess in a similar way to the static test, were there any knots in the cable as you were trying to try to do your dynamic test?
There were not any knots in the cable when we did the dynamic test. I wish I had more of this for you to, maybe I can show. Basically, this had a hook on the top, and we just doubled the USB cable over and then hooked this. I apologize, it's so tiny, but hooked that through the hook and then ran the two wires up and around, and then the one end hooked back in, as you see, correct, right here. So there were no knots in the test with the crash test dummy.
Okay. And I like where you just circled there. That's a metal hook.
That is a metal hook holding the plastic aspect of the end of the USB cable.
Okay. You agree with me that's not a plastic cylinder or tiny plastic cylinder?
On which part?
This part here, the hook part.
No, that's a metal hook.
Okay. And you would agree with me that this is a USB sort of end?
Yeah, I cannot tell from the picture. I don't remember if that's the printer end or the regular USB end, but that is one of the ends.
Okay. And again, even when doing this dynamic test, you're not trying to recreate the scene after looking at that one picture, correct?
We were trying to suspend the dummy in a similar fashion to the one picture that I was given.
And you'd agree with me that based on the one picture you saw, the person wasn't being suspended, correct?
The view of the picture, I could not tell that.
Okay. So again, you're just trying to determine whether even this dynamic test, the tree would hold 100 pounds.
Correct.
Just one moment. You
Roll. Chair won't roll.
obviously you used a crash test dummy that you talked about on direct, correct?
Correct.
You didn't have anybody willing to be a human experiment in this case, right?
Correct.
And you described this crash test
question
dummy
is that?
and the neck. Can you describe that again?
What
for
an
me?
asshole.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the dummy has underneath that rubber type skin, and you can see here there's the back of the, I guess you would call it the skull, is a skull cap. You can pop that off to put instrumentation in the head. So beneath the rubber is a metal skull that is a certain mass to match anthropometry of occupants and vehicles. And then that attaches a metal interface in the bottom of the skull, attaches to the top of the neck. And as I mentioned, the neck is basically a layer of metal, a layer of rubber, metal, rubber that allows for a little bit of flexion extension. If you can imagine in a forward-facing car crash, your head will come down and come back up. So this dummy's neck allows for front to back. But what happens is, as you can see, I apologize, there's going to be a lot of lines on this, but right in here, you can see that wire pulling up on the edge of the rubber that's covering the head. That's not realistic in a human, and that interaction is going to be slightly different in a human than it would be in this crash test dummy.
Including if a human was alive and tried to move while this was happening, correct? The dummy's not moving in any way unless you're actually implementing it or doing something to make it move, correct?
I will say that I corrected dummy's not going to move. I don't have knowledge of the human aspect of that.
Okay, that's fair. You would agree with me that the crash test dummy's head kind of makes a angle there that I guess you described allows that to sort of hook under?
Correct. The head and the neck angle is specific, as if the typical angle of when you're sitting in your vehicle for your eyes to be forward with your seat at 20 degrees. So.
Okay. I think you testified to this, but you'd agree with me that's not realistic to a normal human being when you're trying to run like this type of test.
What's up, Josh Chandler?
Hey,
Josh.
Human, so I probably cannot answer that.
Okay. You'd agree with me though, just in looking at that angle, you looking at me looking at you, that's not something that looks like a normal person, correct?
I will say the lack of skin going from the mandible down to the neck would change that interaction.
Okay. And so the connection there would be a cord up against metal as opposed to a cord up against skin.
Skin, soft tissue, correct.
Okay.
Possibly.
Maybe just one moment, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I have no further questions. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
No. Tell the jurors why you used a 10-foot USB cord if you could.
I believe, I'm trying to recall, either in an email or a conversation perhaps on November 6th that I was told by someone a 10-foot cable, but I cannot tell you who that was because I know I specifically was searching for a 10-foot cable.
And while you don't know the name of the person, do you know like for whom they worked?
Objection. He just doesn't remember who he talked to, so
Well,
I was going to say who he works for.
He doesn't know the name of the person, but he may know, and we don't know what the answer, but he may know who the person if he doesn't know where they were. If you can answer.
It would have been from when I was meeting with the detectives.
One other question about, you were asked if this was the first time that you had run this particular test. Does the fact that it's the first time that you've run this test impact your findings at all?
The fact that we've never ran this test does not impact the science and the outcome. The results are measured, they're real outcomes. No, it wouldn't change that.
Thank you, nothing further.
And so when you say the science of the outcome, you're talking about just that tree branch can hold roughly 100 pounds without failing?
That specific test that we ran, those results are solid for that test, which was to see if the branch could suspend the weight.
Certainly not anything specific to the facts and circumstances of this case, just the weight itself in the tree branch.
Correct.
Okay.
Any questions anyone has for this witness?
So Oz, I don't know if you knew this, but the jury gets to ask questions directly to the witness. That's what we're doing here.
Okay.
So they take them and confer with the attorneys, and then the jury gets to ask direct questions to the witness.
That's interesting. Which state is this?
Ohio.
Oh, well, there you go. Proof that I don't exist in a dome in Ohio. That's interesting. That's not a concept we have here.
I don't know if that's proof of anything, but
I've heard that in some instances, the jury's not even allowed to take notes. Is that so?
Yes, that's true. There's
Yeah.
certain jurisdictions where they can't take notes. Yeah.
Well, ours were able. My jurors were able to take notes, and they were able to ask questions too. On top of it,
And they came up with better questions than the lawyers.
sometimes.
yeah, they did. Some of them are really good. Some of them are. I was
Some of
surprised.
them were silly.
Surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're lay people, though. They don't. They don't
I mean, I don't know how you expect to put all this on people that don't know what's going on to decide these things.
Right.
Mm.
I don't see it. I wouldn't want to be on a jury.
I did once.
I mean, did you know who was lying? One side was lying, right? You got to figure out who's lying.
There was clear evidence.
It's usually the lawyers that are lying.
Yeah.
Oh, stop you.
I said usually.
I'll give them this. They didn't plant any evidence on me, and they could have.
They
I
tried
saw.
with the tooth thing.
Oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
That
They
was
didn't
fucked
use
up.
it. That was weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was it? 6 months later, the tooth that they took to Ohio State showed back up at the
6
crime scene.
It was
Yeah.
the March after. So I mean, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, however many months. I got lost on my month thing there, but yeah, it was quite some time.
Yeah. Randomly, after they already collected it once.
And there's someone put it there because
Mhm.
that
First
tooth
question,
would have
for the
made its
dynamic
way down
test with
into
the
the
crash dummy,
under
Yeah.
the sticks.
to get the correct
Someone
force
put that
or
there.
weight measurement, should the force
Right.
or weight value be multiplied by 2?
Convenient.
Only,
They can't even
measuring force
frame somebody right. They're
only
so
on one
stupid.
side of the USB.
It's a good question.
That's both disturbing and
That load cell
comforting.
measures the amount of force that's going between the wires. And so it does not have to be multiplied by 2, I do not believe. It is fine the way it is. So.
When the knot slipped during the static test, the USB cord above the tree slipped closer together. Would this have an impact on the branch deflection?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, absolutely. When the knot slipped during the static test, the USB cord above the tree appeared to slip closer together. Would this have an impact on the branch deflection?
So I believe the question is the two wires came closer together and then were touching on the tree. So we measured the motion of the tree. And so we had the initial level of the tree from the camera without any weight. And then we calculated the total deflection after all the weight was added. We didn't calculate the deflection of each part. So the deflection of the tree branch would not have been altered by that motion of those two cables coming together.
Do you know how much weight would have been supported by the USB cord and branch given the remains were found kneeling on the ground?
No, well, repeat that one more time. I apologize.
No. As many times as you want me to repeat the question, you got it. Do you know how much weight would have been supported by the USB cord and the branch given that the remains were discovered in a kneeling position on the ground?
No, I do not know enough data to be able to calculate that out. And we had a limit of only being able to know what load we added to the tree during our test, so I cannot answer that question.
Would body movement possibly add more weight or pull on the branch?
So body weight, body movements, motion could cause a difference in kinetic energy, perhaps, but mass overall would not have changed. So I don't think it would have changed whether the tree would have failed or not or deflected much more, because the force, mass times acceleration would be same with the core because the acceleration is just gravity pulling down. So I do not believe that's the case.
Final question. In your experience, would a shorter cable have more or less strength than a longer cable?
I have not tested cables for strength of length, so I cannot answer that question.
Consistent with hanging milk cartons.
Yes.
All right, fair enough. Questions from the, I'm sorry, from the defense?
No, you're, thank you.
All right, from the state?
No additional, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You are excused. Thank you.
So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is
Yeah.
all of the testimony. Now we just go to so next week we'll do closing arguments and the verdict. So our
Ooh.
poll with 12 votes, 100% not guilty. It was the evidence is
Come
in.
on.
Is Matthew not guilty or guilty? And everybody selected not guilty. I'm fucking
I should have
shocked.
voted guilty.
Usually somebody's an asshole and would have voted guilty, but it was that compelling where the assholes didn't even come out. So just to
You know,
mess with
I
the
think
poll.
someone may have been using foreknowledge there, to be, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, I think so too. But you know, we try to keep it authentic, but yeah, no, I still, all the evidence is in, and I still don't understand why the hell they charged it or took it to trial or ran with it or were so hellbent on proving it, or
Well, you'll have
doesn't make any sense.
argument. They'll put their story together next week, and you'll hear it.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be shit too.
No, it's horrible.
Is it?
You mean the
Is
week
it?
after
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right.
the week
2 weeks
after,
from now.
because next week's
Yeah.
Christmas.
Christmas? Yeah.
Yeah, you wait
Next
till you
Monday
hear
is
the final
Christmas.
arguments. Sleeper does it, and it's the one part that gets me is he does say, if it wasn't Matt, who else would it be? And that resonated. I don't know why it did. I didn't know how I didn't know if the jury. I didn't know. I just didn't know. So.
Huh.
And when he's and I'm screaming to myself because you didn't look at anybody else.
Right.
You know, so
Nothing.
I
Didn't look at
I
anything.
just didn't know if the jury. I mean, this is the way I put it in my book is this: they didn't have any evidence to arrest me, to investigate me, to indict me, nothing. So why would the jury see anything different? So I was really afraid that they were like everyone else and they were just going to believe police. So it
Yeah,
was
I mean,
really
your
scary.
life's on the line. You're sitting there with your life on the line. Of course, you're going to be worried about it.
They didn't need any evidence to indict me. I mean, how did they get that on? I was scared.
Well,
to
they
death.
lied.
Well, that's
They
true.
did. Absolutely, they lied. And then when they said not guilty, I lost it. I fucking lost it. It's just like, oh my god, I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it.
So,
Well, I'll see all
yeah.
you guys in a couple weeks then. Right?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Enjoy your Christmas, buddy. I'll probably
Hey,
see you Saturday. Are you
My
going to be?
man from. All right, cool. Yes, right.
Yeah.
You'll see me Saturday, right? Probably.
Yeah. I'll be over with Dylan. So,
My man from Australia. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Look, I'd love to do an interview with it sometime, so I'll reach out and we can talk. All right.
And I'm always here, bro. Absolutely. Thank you.
Lovely.
All right, man. Peace.
All right. Merry Christmas, brother. We'll
Merry
catch you.
Christmas, everybody.
We'll see.
See ya.
All right. So I'm going to be kind of short on this because I have a rocket stream starting 3 minutes ago. So the rockets don't wait for me. But yes, no Mathew Moore trial next week. We will be observing the Christmas holiday. And then following that on the first day of 24, we'll go through closing arguments and the verdict and wrap it up. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This has been a neat trial for me, and again, Matt's been incredibly gracious with his time.
Absolutely.
And I'm super happy that he has been. So but with that being said, does anybody have anything to add?
No, get to your stream.
Yeah, no, go for it, dude. Oh, hang on, screw it. I'll take the 2 seconds to plug. Friday morning, I'm starting my Christmas drinking streams. Hope to see you all there. Otherwise, yeah, dude, go play with your rocket. Come on.
I'm going. All right. You guys should be redirected if you want to go over and watch the launch. Some of you are already over there. I'll see you guys over there in a moment. Bye-bye.
Bye.